Under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn, the fortress bore witness to a gathering that felt both timeless and ephemeral, a symbolic reunion where love, loss, and hope intertwined in a tapestry of raw emotion. In the grand hall, illuminated by the gentle radiance of flickering candles and the early light of a new day, Brier stood at the center, surrounded by the faces of those who had become her chosen family. Today was not a conventional wedding, but a sacred ceremony of unity, a promise to forge a shared future, despite the lingering shadow of the ancient curse. The air was thick with bittersweet anticipation as Stephen and Kai stood on either side of Brier, their eyes reflecting a mix of determination and vulnerability. Their expressions were soft and resolute, as if they had silently agreed to embrace a destiny where rivalry gave way to collective healing. In that moment, Brier felt the weight of years of heartache and sacrifice lighten, replaced by the tender, exhilarating promise of togetherness. A gentle murmur spread through the gathered pack, a chorus of voices that, despite past grievances and untold sorrows, now celebrated the possibility of renewal. The elder, whose wisdom had guided them through centuries of torment, stepped forward and recited a blessing in a low, reverent tone. May the wounds of the past heal in the light of this new beginning, and may the love that binds you forge a future where the curse no longer casts its long shadow upon our hearts. As the words echoed softly, Brier took a deep breath and closed her eyes, allowing the blessings to seep into her soul. In her heart, she carried the memories of a painful past, the betrayals, the endless nights of solitude, and the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. Yet now, with both Stephen and Kai at her side, she felt an overwhelming surge of hope. The sacrifices, though bitter, had paved the way for this fragile unity, a unity that promised healing even if the remnants of the curse still whispered in the corners of their lives. The ceremony was simple yet profoundly moving. Instead of a traditional exchange of vows, Brier and her beloveds shared a quiet, heartfelt conversation, a series of promises spoken in hushed tones, punctuated by tender touches and lingering gazes. "I choose you both," Brier declared, softly, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. "I choose the love that has sustained me through my darkest hours, the love that promises unity over division, hope over despair." Her words, filled with both determination and sorrow, hung in the air like an unbreakable vow. Stephen stepped forward, his hand finding hers, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise to protect you, to cherish you, and to stand by you, even in the face of the curse that once tore us apart," he said, his voice firm yet tender. Kai, his gaze equally intense, added, "I vow to honor the love we share, to bridge the divides of the past with every heartbeat, and to walk with you into the uncertain future side by side." Their voices merged into a single harmonious pledge, testament to the strength of their bond and a subtle defiance of the fate that had long haunted them. As the final words of their vows faded into the hushed silence, the assembled pack erupted in a soft, collective murmur of approval, a promise of solidarity and shared hope. The celebration that followed was not one of exuberant joy alone, but of a reflective, almost sacred recognition that a new chapter had begun. Brier, Stephen, and Kai, though forever marked by the curse, had chosen to embrace love's unpredictable power to transform their pain into a beacon of possibility. Yet, as the festivities carried on into the early hours of a hopeful morning, a lingering melancholy remained, a reminder that the curse's shadow might still stretch across their lives, and that the road ahead would not be free of challenges. In quiet moments, as Brier gazed into the eyes of the men who loved her, she could see the silent questions. Would the sacrifices they had made be enough to keep the darkness at bay? Could love, however tender and determined, truly mend the scars of a cursed lineage? In the soft murmur of laughter and whispered blessings, Brier found a bittersweet solace. The future was uncertain, the path ahead shrouded in both promise and peril. Yet, in choosing to unite their hearts and spirits, they had set forth on a journey where every step was a defiant stand against the forces of despair. A journey where the power of love and healing might, at last, overcome the ancient curse. As the celebration slowly faded into the gentle glow of a new day, the trio shared a quiet, lingering embrace, a moment suspended between heartache and hope. Their love, though scarred by the past, now shone with the fragile light of possibility, inviting all who witnessed it to believe in the transformative power of unity. And with that, a new beginning was born, one that promised to heal the wounds of yesterday, even as it left an open, poignant question in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a future unbound by old, relentless curses. Under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn, the fortress bore witness to a gathering that felt both timeless and ephemeral, a symbolic reunion where love, loss, and hope intertwined in a tapestry of raw emotion. In the grand hall, illuminated by the gentle radiance of flickering candles and the early light of a new day, Brier stood at the center, surrounded by the faces of those who had become her chosen family. Today was not a conventional wedding, but a sacred ceremony of unity, a promise to forge a shared future despite the lingering shadow of the ancient curse. The air was thick with bittersweet anticipation as Stephen and Kai stood on either side of Brier, their eyes reflecting a mix of determination and vulnerability. Their expressions were soft and resolute, as if they had silently agreed to embrace a destiny where rivalry gave way to collective healing. In that moment, Brier felt the weight of years of heartache and sacrifice lighten, replaced by the tender, exhilarating promise of togetherness. A gentle murmur spread through the gathered pack, a chorus of voices that, despite past grievances and untold sorrows, now celebrated the possibility of renewal. The elder, whose wisdom had guided them through centuries of torment, stepped forward and recited a blessing in a low, reverent tone. May the wounds of the past heal in the light of this new beginning, and may the love that binds you forge a future where the curse no longer casts its long shadow upon our hearts. As the words echoed softly, Brier took a deep breath and closed her eyes, allowing the blessings to seep into her soul. In her heart, she carried the memories of a painful past, the betrayals, the endless nights of solitude, and the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. Yet now, with both Stephen and Kai at her side, she felt an overwhelming surge of hope. The sacrifices, though bitter, had paved the way for this fragile unity, a unity that promised healing even if the remnants of the curse still whispered in the corners of their lives. The ceremony was simple, yet profoundly moving. Instead of a traditional exchange of vows, Brier and her beloveds shared a quiet, heartfelt conversation, a series of promises spoken in hushed tones, punctuated by tender touches and lingering gazes. "I choose you both," Brier declared, softly, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. "I choose the love that has sustained me through my darkest hours, the love that promises unity over division, hope over despair." Her words, filled with both determination and sorrow, hung in the air like an unbreakable vow. Stephen stepped forward, his hand finding hers, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise to protect you, to cherish you, and to stand by you, even in the face of the curse that once tore us apart," he said, his voice firm yet tender. Kai, his gaze equally intense, added, "I vow to honor the love we share, to bridge the divides of the past with every heartbeat, and to walk with you into the uncertain future, side by side." Their voices merged into a single harmonious pledge, a testament to the strength of their bond, and a subtle defiance of the fate that had long haunted them. As the final words of their vows faded into the hushed silence, the assembled pack erupted in a soft, collective murmur of approval, a promise of solidarity and shared hope. The celebration that followed was not one of exuberant joy alone, but of a reflective, almost sacred recognition that a new chapter had begun. Brier, Stephen, and Kai, though forever marked by the curse, had chosen to embrace love's unpredictable power, to transform their pain into a beacon of possibility. Yet, as the festivities carried on into the early hours of a hopeful morning, a lingering melancholy remained, a reminder that the curse's shadow might still stretch across their lives, and that the road ahead would not be free of challenges. In quiet moments, as Brier gazed into the eyes of the men who loved her, she could see the silent questions. Would the sacrifices they had made be enough to keep the darkness at bay? Could love, however tender and determined, truly mend the scars of a cursed lineage? In the soft murmur of laughter and whispered blessings, Brier found a bittersweet solace. The future was uncertain, the path ahead shrouded in both promise and peril. Yet, in choosing to unite their hearts and spirits, they had set forth on a journey where every step was a defiant stand against the forces of despair, a journey where the power of love and healing might at last overcome the ancient curse. As the celebration slowly faded into the gentle glow of a new day, the trio shared a quiet, lingering embrace, a moment suspended between heartache and hope. Their love, though scarred by the past, now shone with the fragile light of possibility, inviting all who witnessed it to believe in the transformative power of unity. And with that, a new beginning was born, one that promised to heal the wounds of yesterday, even as it left an open, poignant question in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a future unbound by old, relentless curses. Under the shimmering haze of neon lights and the distant echo of pulsating beats, the night whispered secrets that only the brave could dare to unravel. In a crowded club where laughter twirled like confetti and champagne sparkled in crystal glasses, Brier stood apart, a quiet enigma amid the revelry. Dressed in a bold red one-piece that clung to her curves with a magnetic allure, she exuded an air of effortless grace, yet her eyes betrayed a hidden sorrow. Tonight, beneath the festive clamor of New Year's celebrations, she was not merely a guest. She was the keeper of a mysterious legacy that pulsed with forbidden magic. The party roared with the promise of fresh beginnings, but for Brier, every joyful note echoed with a subtle, haunting refrain. As she swirled her glass of golden champagne, she caught a glimpse of herself in a mirror adorned with delicate patterns, a fleeting reflection of beauty, yet behind those flushed cheeks and soft, inviting smile lay a burden too heavy for any ordinary heart. For years she had concealed a secret that twisted like a shadow in her soul, a secret born of loss, betrayal, and a curse that transformed the very essence of who she was. This night, as the music soared and the crowd danced with abandon, Brier's internal world raged with quiet, relentless turmoil. Her thoughts wandered back to a time of unimaginable grief, the echo of burning wood and anguished cries that still haunted her every step. It was a past marred by the destruction of her pack, a family torn apart by ruthless adversaries. Since that fateful night, Brier had learned to hide behind a mask of calm, a gentle healer blending seamlessly into the backdrop of everyday life. Yet, deep within, the untamed spirit of a lost and vengeful wolf stirred, yearning for release. Tonight, as the clock neared midnight and strangers embraced like old friends, a single piercing question burned in her mind. How long could she continue to hide the wild truth beneath her tender exterior? Just as the first chime of midnight dissolved into a burst of celebration, a fleeting moment of stillness seized Brier. Amid the cacophony of clinking glasses and raucous cheers, the vibrant facade of the club melted into a surreal canvas of lights and shadows. In that suspended instant, the weight of her hidden identity pressed upon her, reminding her of the relentless fight waging in the recesses of her soul, a fight between the fragile woman she appeared to be and the fierce, cursed spirit that she had never dared to fully embrace. Outside, the city's darkened streets stretched like endless corridors of solitude. The cool night air whispered of secrets, urging her to seek solace in the quiet, hidden corners of her world. Leaving the ephemeral warmth of the club behind, Brier mounted her weathered bicycle, a trusty steed scarred by countless memories, and pedaled into the silent abyss of the village. Every turn of the wheel was a silent testament to her desire to escape, if only for a while, the prying eyes of those who might never understand the true essence of her being. But fate, ever mischievous, had its own plans. As the wind bit gently at her cheeks and the village slipped into a cloak of darkness, a sound unlike any other cut through the night, a low, pained whine that seemed to call directly to the depths of her hidden instincts. Heart pounding, she veered off the empty road into the labyrinth of shadows, drawn inexplicably toward a presence cloaked in mystery and danger. There, half concealed by the midnight gloom, lay a massive creature, a wolf, its fur matted with blood, its eyes reflecting an otherworldly pain. The sight both froze and ignited her spirit, for she knew this was no common beast roaming near human habitations. It was a harbinger of destiny, a signal that the past she so desperately tried to bury was clawing its way back into her present. With trembling resolve, Brier abandoned the pretense of normality. She shed her jacket with swift urgency, wrapping its warmth around the injured beast, feeling every fiber of her being surge with both dread and determination. As she struggled to move the heavy, wounded creature, her body tensed and her pulse raced, a visceral reminder that sometimes, in the midst of chaos, the line between humanity and the wild blurs into insignificance. The pain of transformation, both physical and emotional, coursed through her like wildfire, a stark reminder that her destiny was interwoven with forces far greater than herself. This night, illuminated by the transient glow of a flickering street lamp and the haunting music of her memories, marked a turning point. In that fleeting moment between despair and resolve, Brier stood at the threshold of a journey that would force her to confront the very essence of who she was. A healer, with a soul torn by love, haunted by a curse, and destined to choose between the wild passion of her past and the tender hope of a new beginning. Little did she know, the events of this night would ripple through her life like an echo, reshaping not only her destiny, but the fate of those who shared her cursed bloodline. As the wind whispered secrets of ancient magic and unspoken love, Brier's heart stirred with both fear and a resolute determination. Tonight, in the midst of darkness and doubt, she would dare to unravel the threads of fate and confront the legacy that had long defined her. The stage was set, the players were in motion, and the secrets of the cursed bloodline were about to be laid bare. Brier's heart remained heavy long after the echoes of midnight's jubilant cheers had faded into the quiet murmur of dawn. As the remnants of the party receded into a distant memory, each burst of laughter and every fleeting smile served as a painful reminder of a past she had fought desperately to suppress. In the depths of her mind, the jubilant noise of the celebration became a dissonant symphony, a cruel contrast to the sorrow and terror that had once defined her childhood. Those early years, when innocence was still a fragile thing, Brier's world had been vibrant with both joy and the dark hues of impending tragedy. She recalled a time when her pack was whole, a family bonded by love and loyalty beneath a sky as vast and promising as her dreams. But that world was shattered in an instant. The scent of acrid smoke still haunted her nostrils, a pungent reminder of that fateful night when rival forces descended like a vengeful storm. The smell was overpowering, sharp, bitter, and relentlessly inescapable, burning into her memory like a scar that refused to fade. She remembered the anguished cries that filled the air, each one echoing the agony of loss, the desperate wails of her kin, the tearful pleas for mercy, and the haunting silence that followed the chaos had woven themselves into the very fabric of her being. As she had cowered in the shadows, trembling with both fear and disbelief, the secret of her cursed bloodline had been sealed away with every heartbeat. The necessity of concealment was her constant companion, a burden that had grown heavier with each passing year. Now, In the aftermath of the New Year's revelry, the merriment around her felt like a cruel mirage. Every burst of laughter from the crowd, every clink of champagne glasses, tugged at the fragile veil of her composure. They could not know the price of her silence. They could not understand that behind her soft smiles lay memories steeped in pain and loss. Brier had mastered the art of appearing serene and detached, even as a storm raged within her. The laughter of that night became a stark counterpoint to the bitter recollections of her childhood, a time when the world was a tapestry of hope, marred by an ever-present dread. In the quiet solitude of her ride home, the cool night air carried whispers of a time when her world had been engulfed in flames. The memories came unbidden, visions of a once-united pack now reduced to ash, of families torn apart by betrayal, and of a secret curse that had defined her existence. The internal conflict swelled within her like an undertow, pulling her deeper into an ocean of unspoken grief. How could she celebrate new beginnings when every joy was tainted by the relentless reminder of that fateful loss? As she pedaled along empty village roads, the darkness around her deepened, and with it, the echo of a long-forgotten past. Each gust of wind seemed to whisper fragments of her old life, a life where the warmth of familial bonds had been eclipsed by the bitter cold of betrayal. In those whispered memories, she saw her younger self, eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and terror, darting through the shadows in a desperate bid to hide from a world that had become too cruel. The very act of hiding had become both her shield and her curse, a double-edged sword that ensured her survival while condemning her to a lifetime of solitude. The secret of her cursed lineage was a relentless force, a silent specter that haunted every quiet moment. It had once been a means of protection, a necessary concealment that allowed her to blend in with the unsuspecting crowd. But as years passed, the weight of that secret had grown unbearably heavy. In every celebration, in every moment of fleeting happiness, she could sense the impending doom lurking just beneath the surface, a shadow that threatened to engulf her in darkness once more. Now, as she struggled to reconcile the joyous noise of the present with the oppressive memories of the past, Brier felt a stirring deep within, a quiet, insistent call for redemption and release. It was as if the curse itself whispered promises of salvation, even as it chained her to the pain of her lost family. In the rustle of the wind and the distant echo of laughter, she sensed an ominous hint that the secrets of her past were not meant to remain hidden forever. The balance between light and shadow, between joy and despair, had always been precarious, and she could no longer deny the truth that lay dormant within her. The overwhelming weight of that secret became a crucible in which her identity was forged. It was in the contrast between the shimmering lights of celebration and the inescapable darkness of memory that her internal struggle took shape. Each moment of joy was tinged with sorrow, and every smile was undercut by the ghosts of a time that had defined her. With every breath, she was reminded of the relentless curse that bound her, a silent promise of pain that loomed over her future like an ever-present specter. And yet, amid this tumult of emotions, a fragile seed of hope began to take root. Brier realized that the key to breaking free from the curse lay not in burying the past, but in embracing it, acknowledging the profound loss, the unyielding pain, and the enduring love that had once defined her world. As the night deepened around her, so did her resolve, setting the stage for a journey toward redemption that would shake the very foundations of her cursed destiny. The cool night air wrapped around Brier as she pedaled away from the fading echoes of the New Year's party. The celebration's lingering cheer slowly dissolved into an eerie silence, broken only by the rhythmic whisper of her bicycle's tires along the deserted village road. But just as she began to settle into the quiet of the night, a strange sound, a low, pained whine, cut through the darkness like a mournful cry. Her heart skipped a beat, and instinctively, she slowed, straining her ears to catch the source of this haunting sound. Drawn by a force she could neither explain nor resist, Brier veered off the main road into a narrow, shadow-draped alley. The glow of distant street lamps barely penetrated the thick veil of darkness, and every pedal stroke seemed to echo her mounting apprehension. The sound grew louder, morphing into a desperate, aching moan that resonated deep within her core. With every passing second, the unease deepened, and her mind raced with both fear and an inexplicable sense of duty. Rounding a corner, Brier's eyes caught a glimpse of movement in the periphery, a massive, hunched shape barely visible against the ink-black backdrop. As she drew closer, the silhouette resolved into a monstrous figure. A wolf, its fur matted with dark, clotted blood, sprawled helplessly against the cold, rough pavement. The creature was enormous, its eyes clouded with pain and despair, and a deep gash marred its side, seeping crimson under the dim light. The sight struck Brier like a physical blow. Memories of loss, pain, and a once-forgotten horror rushed to the forefront of her mind, and her breath hitched in a mingled gasp of shock and sorrow. Without thinking, she halted her bicycle and dismounted, her legs trembling with urgency. The cool night no longer offered solace. It now seemed charged with an ominous energy. Approaching the injured beast with cautious determination, Brier's eyes searched for signs of life within the creature's pained gaze. Despite its wild, fearsome exterior, there was a vulnerability there, a silent plea for help that tugged at her very soul. In that heart-stopping moment, the duality of her nature surged forth. She was both the gentle healer and the fierce cursed descendant whose very blood had been tainted with ancient magic. The instinct to help, honed by years of concealing her true self, overpowered any lingering fear. Her hands, trembling but resolute, reached out to gently cradle the massive animal. As she drew near, she could feel the heat radiating from its injured body, and the raw, palpable pain etched into every line of its muscular frame. Then, as if an unseen force ignited within her, a sharp, searing pain shot through Brier. It was as though the act of reaching out had unlocked a dormant, supernatural power, a transformation that was both agonizing and inevitable. Her body trembled violently. As a surge of energy coursed through her veins, the pain was relentless, burning like wildfire beneath her skin, and each breath felt as if it were torn from her very soul. Yet, even as the agony overwhelmed her senses, she refused to let go. Every fiber of her being screamed to save this tormented creature, even if it meant sacrificing a part of herself. With a desperate growl that echoed in the still night, she gathered all her strength and carefully, almost reverently, wrapped her arms around the wolf. The transformation was swift and brutal, a searing cascade of pain and electricity that blurred the boundaries between human and beast. As the magic took hold, the wolf's form seemed to shimmer and quiver under her touch, and Brier's internal world spun wildly. It was as if she were caught in the eye of a supernatural storm where the old laws of nature no longer applied. In the midst of the turmoil, time appeared to slow. Every heartbeat, every pulse of raw energy, became a note in a haunting symphony of transformation. The beast's wounded form, once a symbol of nature's cruelty, now pulsed with an ethereal glow as if touched by moonlight and ancient magic. Brier's own eyes blurred with tears, not only from the physical torment of the change, but from the weight of the secret she had carried for so long. This was more than an act of compassion. It was a fateful convergence of her hidden past, and a destiny she had long tried to outrun. Standing there in the darkness, with the injured creature trembling in her arms, Brier felt a profound shift within herself. The once festive night had descended into a realm of shadows and secrets, a realm where the boundary between curse and salvation blurred. The transformation was not merely physical. It was a poignant, wrenching reminder of the internal battle that had defined her life. In saving this wounded creature, she had opened a door to a deeper, darker truth, one that promised both redemption and ruin. As the first hints of dawn began to break over the horizon, the silence of the night was punctuated by the sound of her ragged breathing. The weight of her secret and the supernatural energy crackling in the air mingled with a growing sense of inevitable change. In that fateful encounter, amid the shadows and whispers of ancient curses, Brier had taken her first step toward a destiny that would reshape her world, and that of all who were bound by the same tragic legacy. Brier's trembling arms clutched, the massive bloodied wolf as the cool night air pulsed with a supernatural energy. Every touch, every heartbeat, was a clash between agony and determination. Her desperate struggle to save this tortured creature ignited something deep within her, a power she had long hidden from the world. As she held the beast, a violent surge of raw magic coursed through her, setting her very nerves ablaze. In that moment, the pain was both excruciating and transformative. Brier's skin felt as though it were on fire, a searing, relentless burn that blurred the line between physical suffering and mystical awakening. The wolf's low, pained growl mingled with the echoes of her own labored breaths, creating a haunting symphony of transformation. Its form, once wild and unyielding, began to quiver under the force of her compassion and the ancient magic she unwittingly unleashed. The world around them slowed, the night growing still as if time itself was holding its breath. Brier's vision swam with flickers of silver light and shifting shadows that danced across her tear-streaked face. Every second was a battle against the overwhelming surge of power that threatened to consume her. The wolf's dark, matted fur shimmered in the faint glow, gradually revealing unexpected hints of something far more human beneath its savage exterior. Suddenly, with a force that defied logic and nature, the wolf's body convulsed. Muscles rippled and contorted in an almost unbearable display of metamorphosis. The creature's growls deepened into a resonant, guttural sound that vibrated through the very core of the night. Brier, locked in her struggle to maintain control, felt an indescribable shift ripple through her own being, a strange connection, as if their destinies were entwined. In a crescendo of supernatural intensity, the wolf's form began to change. Its powerful lupine features softened, revealing hints of rugged humanity beneath. The transformation was dramatic, as if the beast were melting away to reveal the soul trapped inside. Before Brier's wide, astonished eyes, the creature's eyes, once wild and feral, shifted to a deep, soulful brown that radiated both pain and vulnerability. Slowly, with a series of shuddering breaths, the massive wolf's body reshaped itself into that of a man. Her heart pounded so fiercely it seemed to echo in every corner of the silent night. The man who now lay on the cold ground was breathtaking in his raw, rugged beauty. His disheveled dark hair, strong jawline, and the faint glow of his pale skin, now visible in the tender light of early dawn, evoked both fear and an unexplainable allure. For a moment, Brier could scarcely believe her eyes. This was not merely a creature, but a man whose transformation defied all reason. Who are you?" she managed to whisper, her voice trembling with a mixture of shock and awe. The man's eyes flickered open slowly, and for an instant, his gaze held a mesmerizing intensity that both intimidated and beckoned her closer. His chest rose and fell in steady, controlled breaths, the scars and bandages on his side telling a silent tale of recent harrowing pain. As he shifted slightly, a low, rough voice emerged, laden with both gratitude and an undercurrent of mystery. "Stephen," he said simply, his tone neither pleading nor boastful, but carrying the weight of a man who had endured much. His words resonated with a quiet strength, even as the remnants of his previous feral nature lingered in the depths of his eyes. Brier's pulse raced as she processed the revelation. This was not an ordinary encounter, but the fateful emergence of a soul marked by a curse, a destiny intertwined with her own. The physical agony of transformation, the unbearable heat that had scorched her skin, began to ebb away as Brier's focus shifted from her own torment to the man before her. Every detail of Stephen's rugged features, The way his dark hair fell carelessly over his forehead, the sharp line of his jaw softened by an almost reluctant gentleness, captured her attention, pulling her into a vortex of curiosity and wonder. There was something raw and magnetic in his eyes, a silent testament to the inner battle that he too must have faced in that crucible of change. As the surreal metamorphosis reached its climax, Brier felt the last vestiges of the wild, cursed energy dissipate like mist in the morning sun. The beast was no more. In its place stood a man, vulnerable yet defiant, scarred yet striking. The transformation had been miraculous and harrowing all at once, a moment of intense, almost unbearable emotion that left her breathless. In that charged, pivotal moment, the darkness of the night gave way to a dawning realization. The encounter was not merely an act of rescue, but the unlocking of a destiny long hidden within her. As the first pale hints of dawn crept over the horizon, Brier knew that the path ahead would be fraught with danger and mystery. Yet, with Stephen's enigmatic presence now etched in her memory, the promise of a future woven with both pain and profound connection beckoned her forward. Brier's heart still hammered in her chest as she knelt beside Stephen, whose transformation had left her both awestruck and deeply unsettled. The cool morning light played upon his scarred features, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Then, as if compelled by an inner force, he broke the silence in a low, measured tone. You saved me," Stephen said, his voice rough but tinged, with a surprising softness. His gaze, deep and searching, met hers with an intensity that made Brier's breath catch. I owe you my life," he added, almost hesitantly, as if still unsure whether to accept this new reality. Brier's eyes flickered with conflicting emotions, a mixture of shock, empathy, and something deeper that she couldn't quite name. "I didn't save you so that you'd transform in my living room," she replied sharply, her words laden with both exasperation and a trace of dark humor that belied her inner turmoil. This isn't what I expected tonight." Stephen's eyes softened, and his brow furrowed as if wrestling with his own tumultuous feelings. I never thought this would happen," he murmured, the admission heavy, with reluctant acceptance. "But you're different. You're our healer. And somehow, I feel drawn to you." A long silence stretched between them as Brier absorbed his words. Her mind raced back to the years of solitude and the secret she had guarded so fiercely, a secret that pulsed with the curse of her lineage. In that vulnerable moment, the weight of her hidden identity pressed against her, and the raw truth threatened to spill over. "Call me healer if you must," Brier finally said, her voice trembling with a fragile mix of defiance and uncertainty. "But I don't know if I'm ready to be part of this twisted fate." Her eyes searched, his pleading for understanding even as she rebuffed the magnetic pull between them. Stephen shifted slightly, his gaze never wavering. "Brier," he said, soft yet insistent, "I see it in you. The strength to heal, to mend what's broken, even if it's our cursed past. You've carried this burden alone for too long." His words were gentle, as if each syllable were an invocation meant to ease her pain. "But what about me?" Brier countered, her tone edged with pain. "What if this curse that haunts me? What if it's more than I can bear? I've hidden who I truly am for so long. I'm not just a healer. I'm a werewolf, cursed by a past I cannot escape." The confession tumbled from her lips, raw and unfiltered, leaving both of them suspended in the gravity of the revelation. Stephen's eyes darkened, a flicker of sorrow mingling with a reluctant acceptance. I had sensed something in you. A secret, a kindred spirit," he admitted. "And now that it's out, I can't pretend I'm not affected. I'm drawn to you, Brier, because you carry a magic within. A magic that is both curse and blessing. I call you healer not just because you mend wounds, but because you mend hearts, mine included. His words stirred something deep within her. For a heartbeat, the air around them seemed to shimmer with an unspoken promise, a destiny that neither could deny. Yet, the tension remained palpable, a fine line between desire and the fear of what might come next. Stephen, she whispered, the name a fragile prayer on her lips. I'm not sure I'm ready to embrace this path. I've spent years running from the truth of who I am. Tonight, I helped you because it felt right. Because it was necessary, but now I'm afraid. Afraid that every moment we share will remind me of the curse I've carried for so long. He stepped closer, reducing the distance between them until his warm breath caressed her cheek. I understand, Brier, he said softly. This curse has shadowed our lives, twisted our fates, but perhaps, in accepting it, in embracing it together, we might find a way to break its hold. I see the burden you bear, and I want to help you shoulder it. You are not alone in this fight. The intensity of his words, mingled with a tender vulnerability, tugged at something deep inside her. The air seemed to vibrate with the possibility of healing, a chance for redemption that glimmered like a fragile light in the darkness of her memories. Maybe, she began, hesitating as the enormity of her secret and the implications of his confession pressed in around her. Maybe there's a reason our paths have converged tonight. I've always believed that fate has a way of revealing the truth when we least expect it. Stephen's hand gently reached out, covering hers in a reassuring grasp. Then let us face this destiny together, he said, his tone both a plea and a promise. I may be flawed, and this curse may have dictated our lives for far too long, but I believe that love, the kind that mends and heals, can be our salvation. In that charged moment, as the first rays of a hesitant dawn began to break over the horizon, Brier felt the stirrings of something that transcended fear and longing. It was the fragile, defiant hope that maybe, just maybe, their shared pain and destiny could pave the way for a future where the curse no longer held them captive. Their eyes locked, an unspoken dialogue of promise and conflict passing between them. With every tremor of uncertainty, their connection deepened, a silent testament to the transformative power of truth, vulnerability, and an unyielding desire to reclaim their destinies. In the tender aftermath of their intimate exchange, when the fragile threads of newfound connection between Brier and Stephen shimmered like dew in the early morning light, a harsh, discordant sound shattered the delicate stillness. A series of heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed along the corridor outside, growing louder with each passing second. The sudden, ominous noise sent a jolt of alarm through both of them, and their eyes darted to the door as it trembled under the weight of an approaching threat. Before either could utter another word, the door burst open with a resounding crash that seemed to split the silence. A group of rugged, intimidating figures strode in, their eyes burning with a predatory intensity under the dim glow of the overhead light. At their head, an imposing alpha, his broad frame accentuated by the raw power in his stance, fixed his steely gaze on Brier with a look that brooked no argument. His presence was as commanding as it was menacing, a living embodiment of the Tao, rival pack's ruthless authority. "Who is she?" the alpha demanded, in a low, reverberating voice that carried both menace and entitlement. His tone left no room for ambiguity. Brier was not simply an intruder in their midst, but a prize to be claimed. The tension in the room thickened as the group encircled them, their expressions a mix of suspicion, desire, and territorial pride. Without missing a beat, Stephen stepped forward, his eyes darkening with fierce protectiveness. His voice cut through the charged atmosphere like a blade. "Back off," he commanded, his tone laced with the authority of a true leader. "She's with us. I'm not going to let you lay a hand on her." There was a steely resolve in his words that brooked no defiance. a silent promise of loyalty and duty that resonated with every member of the pack present. Brier's heart hammered in her chest as the confrontation unfolded before her eyes. The surreal, tender intimacy of moments ago was now replaced by a palpable undercurrent of danger and raw power. Every muscle in her body tensed in anticipation, and she could almost feel the ancient curse pulsing in the air. A dark, relentless force that bound the members of the pack together in loyalty and conflict. The Alpha's gaze narrowed as he surveyed Stephen, the tension between them crackling like an electric current. "You dare claim her?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think that makes you her protector?" The words were laced with the implicit threat of violence, and a murmur of discontent rippled through the group of intruders. Their eyes glinted with the promise of further bloodshed, a silent challenge to Stephen's authority. Stephen's jaw tightened, and he took a decisive step forward, his presence radiating both defiance and a deep, unyielding loyalty. "She is our healer," he declared firmly, his voice echoing with both passion and command. "And as long as she is with me, no one will dare threaten her. We stand as one." In that moment, his words bridged the gap between raw emotion and the unspoken codes of loyalty that defined their world, a world where every action bore the weight of ancient curses and enduring feuds. Brier watched, torn between fear and admiration, as the Alpha's expression shifted from arrogance to cautious calculation. The balance of power in the room wavered on a knife's edge as the rival pack members exchanged glances, their internal conflict evident in their wary postures. It was clear that the arrival of these men was no random intrusion, but a deliberate act meant to assert dominance, to remind everyone of the harsh realities of pack dynamics and the inescapable grip of the curse that bound them all. In the charged silence that followed, the air seemed to hum with unspoken threats and the weight of an impending clash. Brier's thoughts raced. Her secret, her cursed identity, and her hidden power were all at risk of being exposed to forces far beyond her control. The intimacy that had once provided her with solace now transformed into a battleground of loyalty and duty, where every whispered word and every tense glance carried the promise of violence. Stephen's gaze softened slightly as he looked at Brier, a fleeting tenderness mingling with his fierce protectiveness. "I won't let them take you from me," he murmured, more to himself than to her. Yet his words echoed in her mind like a vow. His presence was a beacon of strength amid the chaos, a silent assurance that, despite the threat at the door, their bond, however complicated, would endure. The Alpha, sensing that the situation had reached a critical juncture, let out a low growl of discontent before slowly backing away with his entourage, leaving a lingering promise of future conflict. As the door closed behind them, the oppressive silence that followed was heavy with both relief and the unmistakable chill of looming danger. The delicate moment of connection between Brier and Stephen now bore the unmistakable marks of loyalty, duty, and an ancient, unyielding curse, a curse that would continue to shape their destinies in ways neither could have foreseen. As the hostile figures receded into the night, a thick silence fell over the pack's temporary sanctuary. With the danger momentarily past, Stephen gently guided Brier toward his fortress, a towering edifice shrouded in mystery and dark elegance. The journey ahead felt like a passage from one world into another, where the remnants of ancient curses and secrets whispered through stone walls and shadowed corridors. The ride was a stark contrast to the tumultuous events that had unfolded moments earlier. Brier sat astride a sturdy, old motorcycle, its engine a low purr against the backdrop of the deepening night. The vehicle carried her along a winding road that cut through the heart of the village, leading toward the looming silhouette of the fortress. Even as Stephen rode beside her, his presence both protective and unwavering, Brier's mind was a battleground of conflicting emotions. She felt a tender reassurance in his firm grip on the handlebars and the steady rhythm of his breath. Yet, an uneasy disquiet gnawed at her, as if the fortress itself bore witness to untold sorrows and hidden conflicts. the fortress emerged gradually from the darkness like a relic from a forgotten age. A Gothic masterpiece of stone and iron. Its high, imposing walls rose like ancient sentinels, their weathered surfaces etched with stories of love, loss, and the relentless passage of time. Tall spires reached upward into a storm-tossed sky, and narrow windows glowed faintly with the promise of secrets kept within. The structure exuded a somber majesty that made Brier's heart both flutter and tremble. Each brick seemed to whisper of battles fought, of curses cast, and of destinies intertwined with shadows and moonlight. As they drew closer, Brier's thoughts drifted into a quiet internal monologue, her mind a swirling vortex of hope and despair. Is this sanctuary or a prison? She wondered silently, gazing out at the ancient facade. The fortress, with all its dark allure, promised protection, yet hinted at deep, lingering mysteries. A place where loyalty and betrayal danced an eternal waltz beneath its cold, imposing arches. The air around her seemed to thicken with the weight of memories and unspoken regrets, stirring in her a feeling of isolation, even as she clung to the reassuring presence of Stephen. The road beneath them twisted and turned like the pages of a well-worn folktale, each curve revealing new glimpses of a landscape steeped in lore. Tall, gnarled trees lined the pathway, their skeletal branches reaching out like desperate hands, casting long, wavering shadows across the pavement. The moon, hidden intermittently by wisps of cloud, cast a pallid light that transformed every detail into a chiaroscuro painting of fear and fascination. In the quiet hum of the engine and the rhythmic cadence of passing scenery, Brier's mind could not help but replay the events of the night, the menacing confrontation, the miraculous transformation, and the haunting sense of destiny that now clung to her like a second skin. Stephen's steady voice broke through her reverie. "This fortress has stood for centuries," he murmured, his tone a blend of pride and sorrow. "It holds the history of our pack, the echoes of our ancestors, and perhaps the key to breaking this curse." His words stirred something deep. Within her, a flicker of hope mingled with the dread of inevitable conflict. Yet even as she longed for the fortress to be a haven of solace, she could not shake the unsettling feeling that the ancient walls concealed darker truths than even she dared imagine. The imposing silhouette of the fortress grew ever larger, and, with each passing moment, the heavy atmosphere pressed closer around them. Brier's heart pounded with both anticipation and trepidation. Am I stepping into a place of redemption, or into the very heart of the curse? She questioned silently, the uncertainty laced with the intensity of her own internal struggle. Every fiber of her being screamed for safety, yet also a desperate yearning to uncover the mysteries that had tormented her for so long. At last, they reached a grand iron gate, intricately wrought with symbols of ancient magic and power. As the gate slowly creaked open, revealing a courtyard shrouded in mist and illuminated by the pale glow of flickering torches, Brier felt as though she were crossing a threshold into a realm where past and present collided. The fortress loomed before them, a fortress not just of stone, but of history, heartache, and an inescapable destiny. In that charged moment, with the echoes of the pack's legacy whispering from every stone and shadow, Brier knew that her journey was far from over. The fortress's austere beauty and the palpable tension in the air were harbingers of deeper conflicts, yet to be revealed, of secrets that could either free her from the curse or bind her forever to a fate wrought in darkness. As she took a deep, steadying breath, Brier braced herself for the revelations that lay hidden within the imposing walls of Stephen's fortress, a sanctuary of mystery, where every step forward was a dance with destiny. Inside the fortress, the air was thick with history and quiet power, a realm where every stone told stories of triumphs and tragedies. As Brier stepped through the grand entryway, she felt as if she had entered an entirely different world. The vast, echoing corridors and shadowed halls were lined with portraits of proud ancestors and relics of ancient rituals, all serving as silent witnesses to the legacy of the pack. The atmosphere was charged with both reverence and underlying tension, a delicate balance that hinted at old rivalries and hidden ambitions. Brier's first encounter was with Rose, the former pack advisor whose warm smile belied a lifetime of sorrow and wisdom. Rose moved with an unhurried grace that seemed to command respect without a word, her eyes soft yet penetrating as they took in Brier's presence. "Welcome, healer," she greeted, her voice both tender and authoritative. "We have heard much about you. I see in you the strength to mend not just wounds, but hearts scarred by our long troubled past." Brier's pulse quickened at the title. Healer, a word that carried with it the weight of expectation and destiny. Yet, beneath Rose's kind exterior, Brier sensed an undercurrent of sorrow, a burden born from the decisions of years gone by and the inevitable cost of survival. In Rose's gentle nod, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of a curse that had plagued their bloodline, a secret legacy that shadowed every interaction within the pack. Not long after, Brier was introduced to Julie, a vibrant spirit whose energy seemed to light up even the dimmest corners of the ancient halls. Julie's chestnut hair was pulled back in a loose braid, and her hazel eyes sparkled with both mischief and intelligence. "I've been waiting for you, Brier," Julie said, reaching out with a warm, open hand that belied the guarded nature of the pack. "You must be exhausted after your journey, but I promise, there's much to share. Here, every smile hides a story, and every laugh is tempered by the weight of what we've endured." Yet even in Julie's warm welcome, Brier could sense subtle hints of tension. There was a guarded quality in the way Julie spoke about the pack's inner workings, a delicate dance of loyalty and rivalry that revealed much about the personal dynamics within the fortress. While Rose exuded the quiet authority of a matriarch, burdened by history, Julie's words carried the spark of rebellion and the bittersweet sting of personal loss. The interplay between these two women painted a picture of a community struggling to reconcile its glorious past with the harsh realities of the present. As they toured the inner sanctum of the fortress, Brier's eyes roamed over intricately, carved stone walls and ornate tapestries that depicted legendary battles and ancient rituals. The air was cool and heavy with the scent of incense and aged parchment, evoking a sense of timelessness that only deepened the mystery surrounding the curse that haunted them all. Conversations in hushed tones echoed in the corridors, snatches of dialogue hinting at alliances formed in secrecy and betrayals that had left indelible scars on the pack's collective memory. In one secluded chamber, Brier found herself seated around a long, polished table with a few of the pack's elders. Their faces, etched with lines of wisdom and regret, spoke of countless years spent safeguarding a fragile legacy. "We are bound by more than blood," one elder murmured, his voice a gravelly whisper. "Every decision, every sacrifice, has been part of a grand tapestry that may yet hold the key to breaking the curse." His words, while laced with hope, also carried a deep, sorrowful warning, an acknowledgement that the curse was not merely a myth, but a living force that dictated the fates of all who belonged to the pack. In the midst of these poignant exchanges, the dynamics within the fortress grew increasingly complex. The warmth of fellowship was intermingled with quiet, simmering rivalries. Some members eyed Brier with genuine admiration and a desire to protect her, while others regarded her arrival with suspicion, questioning whether her destiny might further unbalance an already fragile hierarchy. The tension was palpable, a constant undercurrent that pulsed beneath every smile and every carefully measured word. Throughout the day, Brier's thoughts were in turmoil. Every friendly greeting and each measured conversation reminded her of the immense responsibility she now carried, not just as a healer, but as a potential key to unlocking the ancient curse that had long tormented their lineage. The revelations, whispered among the pack, the careful glances exchanged between trusted allies, all hinted at hidden depths in their history. They spoke of a curse so old and insidious that even the strongest hearts might falter under its weight. By the time the soft glow of dusk began to filter through the stained glass windows of the fortress, Brier realized that she had stepped into a world that was as magnificent as it was fraught with danger. Here, power and tension coexisted in a delicate balance, and every interaction carried the potential to reshape destinies. In this inner sanctum of the pack, where ancient secrets lingered like shadows, Brier knew that the journey ahead would challenge her, not only to heal, but to confront the very forces that had bound her family for generations. And as the evening deepened, the fortress seemed to breathe with a life of its own, a living testament to the trials and triumphs of a people, determined to break free of their cursed fate. Brier, caught in the midst of this swirling vortex of history, power, and emotion, could only brace herself for the revelations that awaited her. In the quiet solitude of a twilight-draped chamber within the fortress, Brier sat alone at a long, aged window. Outside, the world was a shifting canvas of shadow and light, each passing moment blurring the lines between the known and the mysterious. Her eyes, reflecting both sorrow and determination, gazed into the darkness, where memories and forebodings intertwined. Here, in this fragile moment of isolation, the weight of her secret heritage pressed upon her heart like an ancient, unyielding force. For years, Brier had worn the mantle of the gentle healer, a role that demanded compassion, care, and the ability to mend not just wounds, but the very souls of those around her. In her hands, herbs, salves, and tender ministrations had brought solace to many. Yet, with every act of healing, she silently carried the burden of a dark, forbidden legacy. Deep within her lay the curse of a lost wild heritage, a lineage tainted by tragedy, marked by the blood of a once proud pack that had been ruthlessly torn apart by rival forces. This dual existence, the serene healer by day and the haunted, cursed soul by night, was a constant struggle, a delicate balancing act that left her exhausted and conflicted. Her mind wandered to moments when the gentle cadence of her daily rituals clashed violently with the tumultuous echoes of her past. The memory of fiery destruction, the acrid smell of smoke, and the desperate cries of her kin surged unbidden into her thoughts. Those recollections were like ghostly fingers, brushing her skin and stirring a torrent of emotions she had long attempted to suppress. In the quiet of this room, every heartbeat became a reminder of the fragility of her existence, and every shadow seemed to whisper of the curse that now defined her. Yet, there was more to Brier's inner turmoil than mere remembrance. In the stillness of the night, subtle premonitions began to unfurl, haunting visions that blurred the boundaries between reality and nightmare. At times, she would awaken in the dead of night, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding as if in warning. In those moments, she saw faces in the darkness, the fierce eyes of a wolf, the sorrowful gaze of a lost loved one, and even fleeting images of strangers whose expressions hinted at an uncertain destiny. These dreams, ethereal and unsettling, offered no solace, only further questions, and a foreboding sense that her fate was irrevocably entwined with powers she could neither fully control nor understand. Brier's internal conflict was a tempest of hope and despair. On one hand, she embraced the noble calling of healing. The tender, empathetic connection she forged with those around her brought her a profound sense of purpose. On the other hand, the monstrous secret that lurked within her, inherited from a cursed bloodline, loomed like a specter over every interaction, every tender moment of care. This hidden truth was not merely a burden. It was a chain that linked her to a history of violence, loss, and the inevitable march of destiny. In her quiet reflections, she questioned whether the life of a healer could ever coexist with the dark nature of a werewolf, a being born of wild, untamed magic and relentless curses. In the flickering glow of a single candle, Brier allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. "Who am I, truly?" she whispered into the silence, her voice trembling with the weight of her dual existence. Was she merely the soft, caring healer that the world saw? Or did she also belong to the shadowed realm of her forgotten lineage? A realm of raw power and untold anguish? The question gnawed at her, fueling an inner storm that blurred the boundary between the gentle soul she projected and the tormented spirit that lay beneath. As she sat there, memories of past moments, when she had hidden behind false smiles and carefully constructed facades, merged with the vivid, haunting premonitions of her dreams. The lines separating hope from despair, reality from nightmare, began to dissolve. With every beat of her heart, she felt the ancient curse stirring within her, a force that could either destroy her or offer a chance at redemption. The realization was both terrifying and strangely liberating. It hinted at a power that, if harnessed, might free her from the oppressive chains of her past. In that delicate interplay of light and shadow, Brier's inner struggle took on a new dimension. She recognized that her journey was not solely one of healing others, but of reconciling the fractured parts of her own soul. The burden of her secret heritage was a heavy price to bear, yet it was also the key to unlocking a future where the curse might finally be broken. With a deep, steadying breath, she resolved to face the enigmatic forces within her, determined to bridge the chasm between the gentle healer and the wild, untamed spirit that dwelled at the heart of her being. And so, in the silent embrace of the night, with the haunting whispers of fate echoing softly around her, Brier vowed to seek the truth hidden in the depths of her own soul, a truth that might one day mend the rift between the light and the darkness, and finally set her free. Night had become both a refuge and a torment for Brier, a realm where her deepest fears and most fervent desires danced in haunting unison. In the quiet solitude of her modest room within the fortress, the silence was shattered by recurring dreams that blurred the line between fantasy and a sinister, inescapable reality. Each night, as darkness wrapped the world in its velvety embrace, Brier found herself drawn into visions that left her both aroused and terrified. In one recurring dream, she stood alone in a desolate moonlit clearing. The air was thick with an almost palpable mist that swirled around her feet, concealing all but the faint outline of a mysterious figure approaching from the shadows. His face, though obscured by shifting darkness, radiated an alluring magnetism, a blend of raw animalistic power and tender vulnerability that defied all explanation. As he drew nearer, the boundaries of his features blurred and shifted, leaving Brier to wonder if he was merely a phantom of her subconscious or a harbinger of her cursed destiny. The dream's atmosphere was charged with a potent erotic tension. Each subtle movement of his hand, each whisper of his voice, evoked sensations so vivid that Brier's heart raced with both desire and dread. Brier, his voice, low and resonant, echoed through the dreamscape, wrapping around her like a silken caress. The sound was both a summons and a warning, an invitation to surrender to an overwhelming passion and an ominous reminder of the curse that bound them all. Her pulse quickened as the mysterious man reached out, his fingers trailing along her cheek, in a gesture that was as intimate as it was unnerving. In that fleeting moment, the dream fused the realms of ecstasy and terror. Brier's mind teetered, on the edge of an abyss, uncertain whether to yield to the sensual allure or to recoil from the unknown. As the vision deepened, surreal images began to punctuate the landscape. The clearing transformed into a labyrinth of twisting shadows and flickering, ethereal lights, a place where time and space lost their meaning. Amid the swirling mist, fragments of memories intertwined with the dream's fabric. A flash of her, childhood, the echo of distant cries, the overwhelming scent of burning wood. These haunting fragments served as ghostly reminders of a past marred by loss and the relentless burden of her secret heritage. Each recollection was imbued with a raw emotional intensity, a poignant interplay of nostalgia and sorrow that magnified her inner longing. Yet, amid the spectral images and unsettling flashes of memory, there was an undeniable simmering desire, a yearning for connection that went beyond the confines of her solitary existence. The mysterious man in her dreams, with his ever-shifting visage and seductive presence, represented not only the embodiment of her deepest, unspoken cravings, but also the potential for salvation from the curse that had haunted her for so long. His elusive identity, forever blurred between man and myth, left Brier grappling with conflicting emotions, a desperate need to know him, and a fearful reluctance to let him draw her too deeply into the shadows. In another dream, the setting changed, dramatically. Brier found herself in a grand, decaying ballroom, its once opulent decor now draped in layers of dust and forgotten memories. The chandeliers overhead cast wavering pools of light that danced upon the cracked marble floor. Here, she was not alone. Figures in elegant, tattered attire moved silently in a mournful waltz, their faces hidden behind masks of sorrow and longing. Yet, amid this spectral assembly, the mysterious man always appeared, a constant presence, whose gaze burned into hers with an intensity that was both comforting and confounding. As their eyes met across the crowded hall, the air between them pulsed with an unspoken promise, a fleeting moment where time seemed to stand still. These dreams were more than mere nocturnal visions. They were a labyrinth of symbolism that reflected Brier's internal conflict. The erotic tension intermingled with the haunting imagery stirred in her a cocktail of emotions, fear, desire, hope, and despair, that left her questioning not only the nature of the mysterious man, but the very fabric of her own existence. Was he a manifestation of the curse's dark allure? Or was he a beacon of possibility? A promise that, beneath the weight of her secret, there lay the potential for a love that transcended fate. Each morning, as the first light crept hesitantly over the horizon, Brier awoke with a lingering shiver, a residue of the night's surreal encounters. The vivid images clung to her mind, their impact reverberating through her soul. The dreams forced her to confront the duality of her nature, the gentle healer who soothed wounds with tender care, and the tormented spirit whose blood carried an ancient, unspeakable curse. They left her with a lingering question, one that echoed in the quiet spaces between her heartbeats. Could she ever reconcile these two disparate worlds? Or was she doomed to forever dwell in the liminal space between dream and reality? In the depths of these haunting nights, Brier's longing grew. A yearning not only to break free of the curse, but to truly know the enigmatic force that haunted her dreams. It was a desire wrapped in layers of mystery and pain, a desire that both terrified and captivated her. And as the day broke once again, she knew that these visions were not just fragments of a restless sleep, but harbingers of a destiny that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, power, and the very essence of her soul. Under the cloak of midnight, the world transformed into a realm of whispered secrets and soft, eternal promises. Brier sat astride Stephen's sleek motorcycle, its engine a gentle purr against the rhythmic crashing of distant waves. The ride away from the fortress was a journey into the unknown, a passage that would unmask layers of desire, revelation, and inner conflict that had long simmered beneath her guarded exterior. As they sped along the coastal road, the sea stretched out on either side like a vast mirror reflecting the scattered stars. The cool, briny breeze caressed her skin, carrying with it the tantalizing scent of salt and the distant murmur of the ocean. Every gust of wind felt like a tender touch, stirring her soul and blurring the boundaries between the tangible and the ethereal. Stephen's presence beside her was both comforting and magnetic, a steady anchor amid the swirling tides of her emotions. In that luminous darkness, the motorcycle's headlights carved out a narrow path along the rugged shoreline, revealing the dramatic interplay of light and shadow upon the ancient cliffs. The road wound along the edge of the sea, its curves evoking the fluid grace of a dancer moving with effortless poise. Brier's heart raced as she allowed herself to be carried forward, each moment of the ride a potent blend of sensuality and mystery. It was as if the very essence of the night, its cool touch, its hidden depths, whispered secrets of love and loss, igniting an inner flame that refused to be quenched. Midway through their ride, Stephen slowed to a graceful stop at a secluded overlook where the sea met the sky in a breathtaking display of midnight blue. The world around them hushed, and in that sacred silence, he reached into his jacket pocket and produced a small glass bottle. Its delicate curves caught the faint light, refracting a spectrum of colors that danced on the smooth surface. With an air of quiet reverence, Stephen uncorked the bottle, revealing a rolled parchment tucked inside. He extended it toward Brier as if offering her a piece of his very soul. "Open it," he murmured softly, his voice mingling with the whisper of the ocean's breeze. "This is for you." With trembling fingers, Brier accepted the bottle, her gaze locked on the mysterious message contained within. She uncorked it and unrolled the parchment carefully, as though afraid the fragile words might shatter under the weight of their meaning. The message was brief, yet every word pulsed with a deep, unspoken promise. "Stay with me, tonight and always. Our souls are bound by more than fate. They are entwined for eternity." In that moment, time seemed to suspend itself. The message, so elegantly simple and yet profoundly stirring, resonated within her like a long-forgotten lullaby. It spoke of an eternal connection, a bond that transcended the ephemeral nature of life, bridging the gap between desire and destiny. Brier felt her heart swell with a tumultuous blend of hope and uncertainty. Here, on the edge of the world, the symbolism was as vivid as the crashing waves, a promise of deep attachment that both beckoned and terrified her. As she studied the words, a rush of conflicting emotions surged through her. The bottle's message awakened memories of dreams filled with erotic longing and spectral encounters, of moments when she had felt both fiercely alive and achingly vulnerable. It was a reminder of the duality that had defined her existence, a life of gentle healing intermingled with the wild, untamed power of her cursed lineage. In that fleeting clarity, she understood that her journey with Stephen was not merely a ride into the night, but a revelation that threatened to expose every hidden corner of her soul. The ocean's waves, timeless and relentless, crashed against the rocks below, mirroring the steady pulse of her racing heart. Stephen's hand found hers, his touch warm and steady, a silent reassurance that amid the tumult of revelations and inner strife, she was not alone. Yet, the message from the bottle continued to echo in her mind, urging her to acknowledge a truth she had long resisted, that the ties of love and destiny could be as binding as the ancient curse itself. The ride resumed with a newfound intensity. As they sped back along the coastal road, the scenery around them blurred into a mesmerizing cascade of lights, shadows, and whispered promises. The gentle caress of the night air carried hints of salt, freedom, and the bittersweet taste of what might be, a future defined by both passion and peril. Every mile traveled deepened the sensory tapestry that enveloped Brier, fueling her inner conflict and stirring the long-dormant parts of her heart. In that sacred journey by the sea, every element, the roaring ocean, the delicate glass bottles, message, and the quiet strength of Stephen's presence, conspired to reveal a truth, that her destiny was intricately woven with desire, mystery, and a bond that transcended the ordinary. And as the first hints of dawn began to light the horizon, Brier knew that this ride was more than a passage through the night. It was a revelation of a love that was both eternal and enigmatic, a love that would challenge the very fabric of her cursed existence. Morning broke with a soft, hesitant light that crept through the tattered curtains of Brier's room, slowly banishing the shadows of the night. As she awoke, her heart still reverberated with the vivid remnants of dreams that had blended erotic intensity with haunting images, leaving a bittersweet residue in her mind. Yet, the world that greeted her was not the realm of ephemeral visions, but a raw, tangible reality, where every breath felt like a reminder of both love and loss. At first, the silence of the early dawn seemed to offer solace. Brier lay in bed, eyes half open, absorbing the quiet murmur of her own thoughts. The mysterious ride by the sea, the delicate promise etched in that small glass bottle, and the magnetic pull of Stephen's touch had all coalesced into a tapestry of emotions too complex to unravel in one swift moment. Her dreams, intense and surreal, clashed with the soft realities of morning. They were vivid echoes of desire and dread, urging her to confront a destiny interwoven with a curse that had haunted her for years. It was then that a faint rustle drew her attention, a gentle stirring from the next room. With a deep, steadying breath, she rose and made her way through the quiet corridors of the fortress. In a modest chamber bathed in the muted glow of early light, Stephen sat on the edge of a weathered wooden table, tending to a fresh wound on his side. The physical evidence of last night's struggle was unmistakable. Dark bruises and a neatly bandaged cut spoke of both pain and resilience. As he carefully cleaned the wound with cool water and pressed a clean cloth against it, the raw reality of his suffering pierced the remnants of her dreamlike haze. Brier paused at the doorway, her heart heavy with an unfamiliar mix of tenderness and regret. The intensity of their nocturnal encounter, with its heady promises and secret longings, now seemed both distant and achingly close in the stark light of day. Here was Stephen, vulnerable yet strong, a man shaped by his own battles, both physical and emotional. His dark eyes, still lingering with a trace of last night's passion, met hers with a quiet, unspoken plea for understanding. "Stephen," she whispered softly, stepping forward as if drawn by an invisible tether. There was no need for elaborate words. The atmosphere between them was charged with the weight of what had transpired in the dead of night. His gentle smile, though laced with pain, conveyed gratitude, a silent thank you for what had been and what might yet be. As he continued his careful ministrations, Brier felt a shift within herself. The memories of the sensual ride along the coast, where the sea's rhythmic murmur had echoed the beating of her own heart, began to fade into a deeper, more contemplative reflection. The vivid dreams of passion and mystery were replaced by the pressing, tangible reality of duty and love. Each tender touch, each whispered word, reminded her that love was a fragile balance, a delicate dance between vulnerability and responsibility. In the quiet intimacy of that moment, Brier's mind whirled with introspection. How could she reconcile the raw, dreamlike desires that beckoned her with the steady, nurturing commitment that Stephen represented? The duality of her nature, torn between the wild, untamed curse that had defined her lineage and the gentle, healing soul she had painstakingly cultivated, now loomed large in her thoughts. It was as if the night had peeled away a veneer, revealing an internal battlefield where love and duty clashed with relentless fervor. Her heart ached with the realization that the passion of last night was not merely a fleeting indulgence, but a harbinger of deeper truths. The dreams, with their hypnotic blend of ecstasy and terror, were guiding her toward an awakening, a call to embrace every facet of her identity, however contradictory it might seem. Yet, the cost of such an awakening weighed heavily on her. With every touch of Stephen's hand, she sensed the gravity of her secret, a secret that could both bind and break her if left unchecked. For a long while, the room remained wrapped in this quiet, introspective tension. The soft clinking of the cloth, the gentle hum of the water, and the steady rhythm of Stephen's careful care all merged into a poignant symphony that resonated with the deepest parts of her soul. Brier knew that the love they shared, delicate as it was, would be tested by the realities of her cursed existence. The day's gentle light was a stark contrast to the tumultuous forces that churned within her, forces that threatened to spill over and disrupt the fragile peace they had found. The morning advanced. Brier slowly approached the window and gazed out at the awakening world. The soft glow of dawn seemed to symbolize the beginning of a new chapter, a moment where dreams and reality intertwined, each carrying its own truth. In that silent communion with the rising sun, she vowed to confront her inner demons, to explore the intricate interplay of love and duty that defined her existence. Though the road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, the tender care of Stephen and the haunting allure of her dreams together charted a path toward a future where she might finally reconcile the duality of her soul. In that quiet, raw moment of awakening, amidst the gentle ministrations and the lingering echoes of night's passion, Brier felt the stirrings of a profound resolve, a determination to embrace the full spectrum of her identity, come what may. Later that afternoon, as shadows lengthened across the ancient corridors of the fortress, Brier found herself in a quiet corner of the communal chamber. The space was softly lit by the warm glow of scattered lanterns, and the murmurs of quiet conversation provided a gentle backdrop to the day's lingering tensions. It was here that Julie, with her characteristic blend of warmth and enigmatic insight, sought her out. "Brier," Julie began, her voice low and soothing, yet edged with a hint of urgency. "I've been meaning to speak with you about something important." Her hazel eyes, bright yet shadowed by an indefinable worry, locked onto Brier's as she spoke. There was a measured cadence in her words that carried the weight of secrets, best left unspoken, yet impossible to ignore. Brier's heart fluttered with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension as she responded, "What is it, Julie? You seem troubled." The soft timbre of Julie's tone, though laced with concern, hinted at depths far beyond the everyday trials of life within the pack. Taking a measured breath, Julie leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to merge with the soft rustling of the ancient tapestries on the walls. "There's talk. Whispers that speak of a presence among us, one whose name you might already have heard in fragments of old lore. They call him Kai." At the sound of his name, Brier's mind raced. Although the name was familiar, it was shrouded in layers of mystery and conflicting emotions. "Kai?" she echoed softly, her voice betraying a flicker of uncertainty. "What do you mean? I thought I only knew of him in passing." Julie's expression grew more serious, her eyes reflecting both empathy and caution. "He is not merely a rumor, Brier. He is a force unto himself, enigmatic and dangerous in his own right. Some say that his presence is intertwined with the curse, a darker thread in the tapestry of our fate. I have seen him in moments of quiet despair, his eyes full of secrets and unspoken pain. And though he may appear calm, there is a storm beneath the surface that few can withstand." The weight of Julie's words settled over Brier like a shroud. She felt an inexplicable pull toward the mystery that was Kai, a mixture of dread and an irresistible yearning to uncover the truth. "But why haven't they told me more about him?" she asked, her tone a blend of longing and anxiety. "If he is part of our destiny, shouldn't I know his role, his connection to all this, to the curse?" Julie hesitated, her gaze drifting as if in search of the right words. "Some things are meant to be discovered in time, Brier. The curse, as you know, is a labyrinth of hidden histories and unyielding fates. Kai is a key, one that holds both promise and peril. I fear that he might be the catalyst for changes that even you are not yet prepared to face." Her words were gentle, yet each syllable carried an undercurrent of foreboding, a warning of battles yet to come, of truths that might unravel the fragile tapestry of their lives. The conversation shifted, and for a long, silent moment, the two women regarded each other with an unspoken understanding. Brier's mind, still reeling from the revelations of her own struggles, now churned with the possibility of a connection deeper than she had ever anticipated. "I need to understand," Brier murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "What? Do you know of him? What is it about Kai that stirs such unrest?" Julie's eyes softened, and she placed a comforting hand on Brier's. "He is as enigmatic as the moon on a stormy night, Brier. His emotions, his actions, they hint at a past riddled with both sorrow and defiance. There are those who believe he bears the weight of our curse in ways that mirror your own. Yet, he is unpredictable. His presence can both soothe and unsettle, inspire deep longing and provoke hidden fears. As the conversation deepened, a flicker of warmth and genuine concern shone through Julie's cryptic words. "You must be cautious," she advised, her tone earnest. "The path ahead is fraught with choices that could change everything. Kai's influence is not merely that of another member of our pack. It is a force that may tip the delicate balance between love and duty, freedom and fate. If you choose to follow this path, be prepared for both its light and its shadows." Brier's heart ached with the intensity of the moment, her internal struggle now compounded by the enigmatic allure of Kai's presence. The revelation stirred within her a deep, unspoken desire to peel back the layers of mystery, even as fear gnawed at the edges of her resolve. The delicate interplay between the familiar comfort of her role as a healer and the uncharted territory of a cursed destiny left her feeling both vulnerable and oddly empowered. In that quiet gathering of confidants, amid whispers and soft reassurances, Brier realized that her journey was evolving. The secrets of the curse and the mysterious figure of Kai beckoned her to step beyond the boundaries of her known world. With Julie's cryptic counsel echoing in her mind, Brier braced herself for what lay ahead, a future where every whispered secret, every unspoken desire, could reshape not only her destiny, but that of the entire pack. The weight of the revelations was profound, yet within it burned a spark of hope. A hope to uncover truths, to heal wounds that went beyond the physical, and perhaps to forge a new path in a world shadowed by ancient curses. In the dimly lit council chamber of the fortress, the air grew thick with a palpable mix of reverence and sorrow as Brier sat before the venerable elder, whose lined face bore the weight of generations past. The room was hushed, save for the soft crackle of a nearby hearth, as the elder began to speak in a voice that resonated with ancient memories and heavy regret. He spoke of a time long forgotten, a time when the pack was whole and the bonds of blood and loyalty were unbreakable. Yet, beneath the surface of that once proud lineage lay a seed of betrayal that would forever alter the course of their destiny. The elder's voice, low and measured, wove the tragic history of the Cursed Bloodline. "Many centuries ago," he began, "our ancestors, driven by ambition and hubris, dared to tamper with forces beyond their control. They sought to harness the raw, untamed magic of the wild, a power so potent that it could grant them dominion over life and death. But in their arrogance, they committed a grave transgression. They betrayed the trust of a powerful witch, Kata, who had long protected the delicate balance between our world and the realm of the supernatural." Brier listened, her heart aching as the elder recounted how Kata, once revered as the mightiest of all witches, had been used and deceived by those who sought to exploit her gifts. "Your ancestors," the elder continued, "manipulated her, power to serve their own ends, using their uncanny resemblance to one another to weave a web of deceit. They treated her not as a guardian, but as a mere tool, a pawn in their endless quest for supremacy. In time, she uncovered their true intentions, and in her fury and despair, cursed the bloodline. That curse, as you now bear witness, was designed to bind the fate of every twin born into this lineage." As his words sank in, Brier felt a cold shiver trace down her spine. The elder's narrative was punctuated by a profound sense of inevitability, a tragic destiny woven into the very fabric of their existence. "The curse," he intoned solemnly, "decrees that any twin born of our bloodline shall be forever bound together. If one of them falls in love, the other is doomed to feel that same passion, as if by an unbreakable, invisible tether. No matter how far they might try to stray, their hearts remain irrevocably intertwined. This bond, forged in betrayal and sealed by Kata's wrath, has condemned our people to a life of shared destiny, endless conflict, and heartache. The elder's eyes, deep wells of grief, met Brier's with a look that was both pitying and resolute. He explained that the curse was not merely a matter of romance gone awry, but a far more insidious force, a relentless cycle of passion and rivalry that had plagued the pack for generations. Stephen and Kai, he whispered, are not simply brothers by blood. They are the living embodiment of this curse, a duality of strength and vulnerability, destined to clash and yet be bound by a love that is as painful as it is profound. In that moment, the weight of the curse pressed upon Brier with unbearable force. She realized that her role as a healer was inextricably linked to this tragic legacy. The curse was not a distant legend or a myth whispered in the dark. It was a living, breathing force that had shaped the lives of everyone in the pack. The betrayal of their ancestors, the anguish of Kata, and the doomed fate of every twin now stood before her in stark, undeniable clarity. The elder's narrative carried an ominous finality as he spoke of the price that must be paid to break the curse, a price that had tormented their people for generations. To sever the bonds forged by this curse, he intoned, one must choose between love and duty. The cycle demands sacrifice, one twin's life for the sake of the other, or an endless torment of shared passion that will leave your souls forever scarred. It is a fate that no heart can bear lightly. Brier's mind swirled with the magnitude of these revelations. The Cursed Bloodline was not just a series of unfortunate events. It was a meticulously woven tapestry of sorrow, betrayal, and an unyielding fate that had cast a long shadow over her existence. Her thoughts raced with the implications. How could she, a healer, ever mend wounds inflicted by such ancient and malevolent forces? Could she find a way to break this cycle of despair without sacrificing the very essence of what made her and those she loved so unique? The elder's voice softened as he concluded his tale. You, Brier, carry the blood of the ancients. You bear the potential to heal not only the physical wounds of our kind, but also the deep, festering scars of our cursed lineage. Yet, with this power comes a burden, a responsibility to confront the tragic fate that binds us all. In that solemn moment, surrounded by the echoes of the past and the heavy promise of a future fraught with difficult choices, Brier felt the enormity of her destiny. The curse's origins were laid bare before her, a mosaic of betrayal, sorrow, and inevitable loss. The truth was both horrifying and strangely liberating, a call to face the darkness head-on, to challenge the ancient forces that had dictated their lives for so long. As the words of the elder lingered in the air like a lingering lament, Brier understood that the path ahead was steeped in both tragedy and hope. The revelation of the curse was not the end of her story. It was the beginning of a journey, a quest to reclaim her identity, to heal the wounds of the past, and perhaps, one day, to break free from the chains of an ancient, inescapable fate. Brier sat alone in a shadowed alcove of the fortress, the weight of the elder's revelation still echoing in her mind. The ancient curse had been laid bare before her, its origins steeped in betrayal and sorrow, and now she faced an impossible choice: to break the curse at a cost that threatened to shatter the delicate balance of her world. Her heart pounded, with a tumult of emotions, desperation, grief, and a glimmer of fierce determination, all tangled in a web of duty and unspoken love. The witch's words reverberated in her thoughts like a relentless chant. One must choose, they had intoned. Sacrifice one life to free the other, or bear an eternal burden of shared pain. Under the heavy gaze of the full moon, whose silver light now filtered through the ancient stone, Brier felt the cruel inevitability of this fate closing in around her. The full moon's power was not merely a celestial event, but a harbinger of transformation, a time when the forces of destiny gathered strength and demanded sacrifice. Tears blurred her vision as the enormity of the decision pressed upon her. How could she choose between the two souls bound to her by the curse? Each life represented a fragment of a larger, tortured destiny, one that had haunted the pack for generations. In her heart, she loved them both, the passionate, tempestuous spirit of Stephen and the quiet, enigmatic strength of Kai. Their lives, their very beings, were intertwined with hers in ways that defied logic. And yet, to break the curse, a choice must be made, a choice that would tear at the very fabric of her soul. In a fevered moment of introspection, Brier recalled the tender moments shared with both men. The protective embrace of Stephen, his eyes burning with a fierce loyalty, and the soft, unspoken understanding that flickered in Kai's gaze, a mirror of her own hidden vulnerability. The memories stirred an unbearable ache within her, a reminder that the cost of freedom might be measured not in coins or curses, but in the very essence of the ones she cherished. Each memory was a painful reminder of the love they had shared, now caught in the vice of an ancient curse. Her inner turmoil escalated, each heartbeat a drum of rising tension. The thought of sacrificing one of them to free the other was like a dagger twisting in her heart. "How can I choose?" she whispered, into the emptiness, her voice trembling with raw emotion. The idea of ending one life, of extinguishing a soul that had touched hers so deeply, was a torment beyond measure. And yet, the relentless curse threatened to drag them all into an endless cycle of heartache and strife. As the full moon ascended, higher in the sky, its pale light casting eerie, elongated shadows across the stone floor, Brier's mind wavered between duty and desire. The ancient magic that had woven their fates together now demanded an answer, a decision that would determine whether the curse would continue to bind them, or be shattered by a sacrifice too painful to imagine. In that suspended moment, every emotion surged within her like a tidal wave. Her thoughts spiraled into visions of what might be, a future where the curse was broken and the chains of destiny were finally undone, juxtaposed with the horrifying possibility of choosing one life over the other. A memory flashed before her eyes, the haunting words of the witch, heavy with inevitability. The price of breaking the curse is unbearable, yet it is the only way to free yourselves from an eternal torment. The witch's voice, both a warning and a promise, echoed relentlessly, intensifying the internal battle raging within Brier. Her mind was a battlefield where the ghosts of the past clashed with the hopes of a brighter future. In that crucible of emotion, she realized that the choice was not one to be made lightly. It was a decision that would redefine her very existence. Her eyes filled with tears as she imagined a life without the curse, a life where the constant struggle between love and duty might finally be replaced by a fragile peace. But the cost of such freedom loomed ominously, a cost measured in the irreversible loss of a beloved soul. The thought of living with that unbearable weight, of knowing that one life had been sacrificed for the promise of a better tomorrow, made her shudder. And yet, every fiber of her being longed for release from the relentless chains of fate. With a shuddering exhale, Brier realized that the time for indecision was over. The curse had woven its dark tapestry around them for far too long, and the looming full moon demanded that a choice be made. In that moment, her heart seemed to splinter, each beat a painful reminder of the love and loss that awaited her decision. Though the path ahead was shrouded in sorrow and uncertainty, she knew that she must summon the strength to confront this agonizing dilemma. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "I must choose, for the sake of our future, for the freedom of our souls." In that poignant declaration, Brier's inner resolve began to crystallize, even as her heart remained torn in two. The choice of the healer was not merely about breaking a curse, it was about redefining love, sacrifice, and the very nature of destiny itself. And in the soft, unyielding light of the full moon, she prepared herself to face the ultimate, heartbreaking decision that would forever alter the course of their lives. In the quiet aftermath of her agonizing choice, Brier felt a fierce, simmering determination ignite within her. With the curse's oppressive shadow weighing on her soul, she resolved that the time had come to reclaim her destiny. Gathering her courage like a precious talisman, she prepared to meet the witch once more, a meeting that promised to set in motion the ritual capable of breaking the ancient curse. The journey to the witch's secluded cabin felt like a pilgrimage, into a realm where magic and fate converged. Under a sky bruised with the deep purples and blues of early night, Brier stepped out into the chill, her breath misting in the cool air as she wrapped her cloak tightly around her. The fortress's familiar stone corridors faded behind her, replaced by a narrow, winding path through a forest that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Each step was accompanied by the crunch of fallen leaves and the soft rustle of ancient branches, their gnarled limbs reaching toward her as if to whisper forgotten secrets of the past. As she pressed onward, the forest opened up to reveal a moonlit clearing where the witch's cabin stood like an outpost of destiny. The cabin, built of weathered timber and stone, exuded a rugged charm and a palpable aura of magic. Ivy clung to its walls, and faint trails of smoke curled upward from a modest chimney, carrying with it the mingled scents of burning herbs and the rich, loamy earth. It was as if the cabin itself were a living relic, patiently waiting to share its ancient wisdom with those brave enough to seek it. Inside, the air was thick with the aroma of incense and dried botanicals, evoking memories of long-forgotten rituals. Flickering candles, their flames dancing in rhythm with the soft murmur of an unseen current, cast trembling shadows on the walls. Each step Brier took was measured and deliberate, her senses keenly attuned to every nuance of the space. A creak of wood, a whisper of wind through a cracked window, the subtle hum of old magic lingering in the corners. Brier began to gather the materials needed for the ritual with meticulous care. On a rough-hewn table, she found an assortment of sacred items: small vials of ancient herbs, bundles of dried lavender and sage, a handful of smooth, dark stones etched with mysterious symbols, and a delicate, leather-bound grimoire that seemed to pulse with hidden power. She traced her fingers over the engraved symbols, feeling a surge of energy that both comforted and warned her of the journey ahead. Every item was imbued with centuries of lore, and in their presence, the line between myth and reality blurred. Determined to overcome the curse that had defined her existence for so long, Brier set about preparing her space for the ritual. She arranged the items in a precise pattern on a flat stone altar, a formation dictated by ancient rites and passed down through generations. The rhythmic sound of her breathing, steady and resolute, filled the otherwise hushed room as she lit a series of candles. Their soft glow illuminated the grimoire's faded pages, where intricate symbols and cryptic incantations beckoned to be deciphered. Every flicker of light seemed to whisper promises of hope and renewal, urging her to embrace the power within her despite the terror of sacrifice. As the ritual preparations neared completion, Brier paused for a moment to center herself. She closed her eyes and allowed the ambient magic to seep into her very being, a heady mixture of anticipation, fear, and unwavering resolve. In that brief silence, the cacophony of her inner turmoil quieted, replaced by the steady drumbeat of purpose. The memories of past grief and the weight of unspoken losses merged with the warm embers of determination that now kindled within her heart. Her thoughts turned to the ones she loved, the gentle, protective soul of Stephen, and the enigmatic, shadowed strength of Kai, each a living reminder of the stakes involved. The ritual was not only a means to break the curse, but a desperate bid to protect them from the relentless cycle of suffering that had tormented their family for generations. With every careful movement, Brier vowed to honor their bond, even as she prepared to challenge the very forces that had ensnared them. As the full moon's silver light bathed the cabin in an ethereal glow, Brier felt the pull of destiny intensify. The magical energies in the room swirled around her like invisible threads, binding her to the legacy of her ancestors and the promise of a future unburdened by ancient pain. In that charged atmosphere, her resolve crystallized into something palpable, a promise to herself that she would not be defined by the curse any longer. With one last deep, steadying breath, Brier opened the grimoire and began to recite the incantations that would guide the ritual. The soft, ancient words flowed from her lips, each syllable imbued with the combined weight of centuries of hope and despair. The room vibrated with the rising crescendo of old magic, and as she continued, the boundaries of her inner world and the tangible reality around her merged in a moment of breathtaking intensity. In that decisive hour, as the past and future converged under the watchful gaze of the full moon, Brier's preparations for the ritual stood as a testament to her strength, a quiet, unyielding determination to break free from the chains of her cursed legacy and forge a new path for herself and those she held dear. Under the unyielding gaze of the full moon, the time for ritual had come. In the center of the candlelit chamber, Brier stood before the meticulously arranged altar. The soft glow of the flickering candles danced over ancient symbols etched into smooth stones, and the air vibrated with the promise of long-forgotten magic. With trembling resolve, she opened the worn leather grimoire, its pages filled with cryptic incantations passed down through generations. Tonight, every whispered word and each measured breath would become the bridge between her cursed past and a future free of its chains. As Brier began to recite the incantation, her voice, low, clear, and resonant, filled the room. The words, ancient and heavy with destiny, slipped from her lips like a sacred litany. By the light of the full moon, I call forth the power of our ancestors. Break these bonds, shatter the chains, and free the souls held in the grasp of this eternal curse. Each syllable was enunciated with deliberate precision, echoing against the stone walls, as if the very building were awakening from a centuries-long slumber. Almost immediately, the atmosphere shifted. The candle flames quivered as if stirred by an unseen wind, and the air around Brier grew thick with magical energy. The room fell into an eerie, expectant silence. The magical forces, palpable and raw, began to swirl in intricate patterns around the altar. It was as though invisible threads of power were weaving themselves into a shimmering tapestry that encased the room in a ghostly luminescence. Brier's heart pounded in her chest as she continued the spell, her voice gaining strength even as her eyes welled with determination and quiet fear. With each incantation, the ancient symbols on the stones flared momentarily with pale, ethereal light. The energy built steadily, crescendoing into a force that made the very ground tremble beneath her feet. Shadows seemed to dance at the edge of her vision, and for a moment, time itself appeared to slow, each heartbeat echoing like a drum of destiny. Then, in the midst of the charged silence, a spectral presence began to materialize. At first it was just a soft glow, a gentle radiance that coalesced into the unmistakable form of a woman. Brier's breath caught in her throat as the figure took shape before her eyes. Her great-grandmother, known as CIA, emerged as an ethereal guide. Dressed in robes that shimmered like liquid silver, and with hair that cascaded in waves reminiscent of midnight, CIA's presence was both otherworldly and profoundly reassuring. The spirit of CIA spoke in a voice that was as soft as a whisper yet carried the weight of millennia. "Brier," she intoned, her eyes deep pools of ancient wisdom, "you have summoned the power of our lineage. The time has come to confront the curse that has shadowed our blood for generations." Her tone was calm, but beneath it lay a gravity that made Brier's heart ache with both sorrow and hope. The spectral figure extended her hand, and in that silent gesture lay an unspoken promise, a duty to break the cycle of pain and reclaim the future for those bound by the curse. In that breathtaking moment, the chamber pulsed with supernatural energy. The incantation reached its zenith, and the magical force surrounding the altar swirled into a vortex of light and shadow. Brier felt the raw power surge through her, an overwhelming torrent of emotion and energy that threatened to tear her apart. The ancient words of the spell, woven with the hopes and despairs of countless generations, resonated in her very soul. Each syllable, each cadence, was a step toward liberation, yet also a reminder of the grave responsibility she now bore. CIA's spectral eyes bore into Brier's, and in that moment, the weight of her great-grandmother's legacy became tangible. "You must be strong, my child," CIA urged gently, her voice echoing like a timeless lullaby. "The curse has plagued us for far too long. To break it, you must sacrifice that which has defined you, your wild power, so that our hearts may know peace." The words cut through the tumult of magic like a knife through silk, filling the room with a solemn urgency that left Brier both terrified and resolute. The air shimmered with raw energy as the incantation neared its final climactic utterance. Brier's voice, now a steady, unwavering beacon amidst the maelstrom, declared, "I cast off the chains of our cursed fate. Let the power of the full moon shatter these bonds and free us from eternal torment." The chamber erupted into a dazzling display of light, a brilliant cascade that seemed to tear through the veil between the mortal realm and the supernatural. For a heartbeat, everything was bathed in an otherworldly radiance. Time itself seemed to pause as the curse began to unravel, thread by cursed thread. As the last echoes of her spell faded into the silence, Brier stood before CIA with her heart pounding like a battle drum. The presence of her great-grandmother lingered like a benediction, an ethereal promise that the path toward redemption had been opened. In that charged, breathtaking moment, the supernatural forces had shifted irrevocably, marking a turning point in Brier's journey, a moment where hope battled against destiny, and where the sacrifices of the past began to shape a future yet uncertain. The ritual had ended, but the energy remained, a potent reminder that the curse was still a force to be reckoned with. Yet now, armed with the guidance of CIA and the power of her own resolve, Brier felt the first stirring of true possibility, a chance to break the chains that had bound her family for generations. And in the quiet aftermath of that spell, the room whispered promises of a future where love, healing, and unyielding strength might finally prevail. In the charged silence that followed the spell, the ethereal form of CIA grew even more distinct, her eyes now somber with a gravity that belied the hope of breaking the curse. As the flickering candlelight danced upon the stone walls, CIA's voice, gentle yet unyielding, broke the stillness. "Brier, to shatter these chains and free Stephen and Kai, you must pay a price that is both steep and irreversible," she intoned, her words echoing like a solemn dirge in the quiet chamber. Brier's heart clenched as the full weight of the revelation sank in. The air, still tinged with the residual surge of magic, felt oppressively heavy with the promise of sacrifice. "What must I give up?" Brier asked, her voice trembling between dread and resolve. She had always known that her powers, the wild, untamed essence of her werewolf heritage, had both defined her and burdened her. Now, faced with the possibility of relinquishing them to break the curse, she felt an inner tumult that threatened to overwhelm her. CIA's spectral gaze softened as she regarded her great-granddaughter with both pity and fierce determination. "Your power, Brier, is the essence that marks you as one of us. To break the curse, you must choose to surrender your werewolf nature forever. In doing so, you will lose the strength, the wild magic, that has been both your blessing and your curse. It is a sacrifice that will change you irrevocably. Once you are human, your link to our ancestral power will fade, and with it, the legacy of your kind will be forever altered." A shiver ran down Brier's spine as the enormity of the cost became clear. Her mind churned with memories of the fierce nights spent under the full moon, when her senses were heightened, her spirit unbridled. A time when the wild power coursed through her veins like a torrent of freedom. Now, to sacrifice that part of herself meant not only relinquishing her own nature, but also severing the visceral connection to the very essence that had sustained her through decades of hidden struggle. "Are you saying I must become entirely human?" Brier's question hung in the air, heavy with both hope and heartbreak. Her voice was soft, laced with the pain of a future where she would no longer be the fierce, enigmatic healer she had known herself to be. If I choose this path, I will lose everything that makes me. CIA nodded, her face a mirror of the sorrow and inevitability that had haunted their lineage for generations. Yes, my child. The curse that binds our bloodline is formidable. To break it, you must forsake the power that has both protected and tormented you. You will become human, stripped of the wild magic that has defined your existence. This sacrifice is not taken lightly. It is the cost required to free those you love from the endless cycle of fate that has tormented our kind. The room seemed to close in around Brier as she grappled with the implications of this ultimatum. Her thoughts raced with images of Stephen and Kai, their faces etched in memory, their lives intertwined with her own in a delicate, painful balance. How could she decide to lose the part of herself that had allowed her to be both a healer and a guardian? The power she possessed was not merely a tool. It was a part of her identity, the very fire that had given her strength in the face of adversity. Tears welled in Brier's eyes as the internal debate raged within her. On one hand, the promise of breaking the curse and liberating Stephen and Kai beckoned like a distant, shimmering light. On the other, the thought of surrendering her wild nature filled her with a profound sense of loss. It was as if she stood at the edge of two divergent paths, one leading to a future free from the cycle of pain, the other to a life stripped of the magic that had always defined her. In the heavy silence, CIA reached out and gently placed a spectral hand on Brier's shoulder. "Remember," she whispered, "this choice is not about losing yourself. It is about finding the courage to forge a new destiny. The sacrifice of your powers may seem like an end, but it is also a beginning, a chance to heal not just the wounds of our cursed past, but to pave the way for a future where love is not shackled by ancient hatred." Brier's mind filled with the weight of that truth. The witch's words, the elders' recounting, and the shimmering magic of the full moon all converged into a single, piercing reality. To break the curse, she must give up her werewolf powers, and with them, a piece of her soul. The decision was agonizingly clear yet heartbreakingly impossible. In that charged moment, her eyes glistened with tears of both sorrow and steely determination. As the candlelight flickered in silent witness, Brier exhaled slowly, feeling the gravity of her impending sacrifice settle deep within her bones. I must do this," she murmured, her voice wavering between despair and resolve. "For Stephen, for Kai, and for the sake of all we have lost." The declaration was both a cry of anguish and a vow to embrace a new reality, a future where the curse's hold could finally be broken, even if it meant surrendering the very nature that had defined her for so long. In that moment, the cost of breaking the curse became more than a sacrifice of power. It was a testament to the courage of a healer who was willing to bear the unbearable, to transform her destiny for the chance at true freedom and love. In the stillness of a long, sleepless night, Brier sat on the edge of a cold stone bench beneath the waning glow of the full moon. The world around her was silent, except for the gentle rustle of the wind through ancient trees. And in that quiet, every heartbeat echoed like a drum of sorrow and longing. Her mind, a turbulent sea of raw emotions, swirled with the memories of love, loss, and an impossible choice that now lay before her. For so many years, she had carried the love for two souls, Stephen, with his fierce, protective passion, and Kai, whose quiet, enigmatic strength had captivated her just as deeply. Each man had etched an indelible mark on her heart, making her feel whole and yet, paradoxically, torn apart. The realization that she could never choose between them weighed heavily on her, like a shackle forged from the very curse that had haunted her lineage. Brier's thoughts turned inward, and in a raw, trembling monologue that spilled into the night, she confessed her truth to the silent heavens. "I love you both," she whispered, voice barely audible against the night's embrace. "How can I choose when every part of my heart beats for you in different ways?" Her words, laden with both tenderness and anguish, formed a confession that was as liberating as it was heartbreaking. In the solitude of that moonlit moment, she allowed herself to face the unbearable reality. To break the curse, I must relinquish my wild, unyielding nature. And in doing so, I risk losing the very essence of what makes me love so fiercely. Her mind raced with the memories of tender moments shared with Stephen, his warm hand gripping hers in a protective promise, the resolute gleam in his eyes as he vowed never to let her go. And then there were the quiet glances from Kai, so full of unspoken understanding and deep, sorrowful longing, as if he too bore the weight of a love that defied choice. In each memory she felt both comfort and a piercing pain, a reminder of the beauty of their love, and the agony of having to choose a path that would inevitably leave one heart shattered. As the night deepened, Brier's inner turmoil reached its zenith. The curse had forced her into a crucible where love and duty, passion and sacrifice collided with relentless intensity. "I am torn," she murmured to the darkness, her voice resonating with a mix of despair and determination. To choose one means to condemn the other, to extinguish a light that has guided me through countless nights of solitude. And yet, if I do nothing, the curse will continue to bind us in endless torment. The paradox was unbearable. Her love, as vast and complex as the night sky, demanded a choice that defied reason. In that agonizing solitude, Brier realized that acceptance was not surrender, but rather the beginning of a painful, transformative journey. She closed her eyes, letting the cool night air and the distant sound of the ocean calm the storm within her. "I must face this truth," she vowed silently. "I cannot live in a state of perpetual longing, forever haunted by the possibility of what might have been. I have to choose, even if it means breaking my heart in the process." The words felt like a heavy stone falling into the depths of her soul, setting her on a path toward a final, irrevocable decision. The internal debate raged, each thought a shard of light and darkness intermingling in a brilliant yet sorrowful tapestry. With every tear that fell, she felt the weight of the curse and the inescapable responsibility to free those she loved from its vicious cycle. "My love for both Stephen and Kai is the truest part of me," she thought, her heart aching with the burden of its own intensity. "But perhaps it is also my greatest curse, for how can I give all of myself when I am forced to sacrifice a part of who I am?" As the minutes stretched into an eternity, the clarity of her resolve began to crystallize amid the swirling uncertainty. Brier knew that her final choice would be an act of profound sacrifice, one that would forever alter the course of her destiny. Yet, the thought of breaking free from the endless torment, of ending the cycle that had bound her family for generations, sparked a fierce determination deep within her. Drawing a long, shuddering breath, Brier slowly opened her eyes and gazed, up at the moon, its silver light illuminating the path ahead. "I cannot choose one over the other," she admitted softly, voice quivering with the enormity of her decision. "Instead, I must embrace this love in its entirety, even if it means bearing the unbearable cost. I will sacrifice what I have always been, my wild, untamed nature, to forge a new path for us all, even if the price is my very essence." In that moment of raw vulnerability and resolute determination, the weight of her impending sacrifice pressed down like a final decree from fate. The path ahead was treacherous and filled with uncertainties, but Brier knew that this was the turning point, the moment where the love she held in her heart would be both her salvation and her undoing. And with a final, heart-wrenching whisper to the night, she vowed to accept the choice that would ultimately redefine her destiny, regardless of the cost. In the aftermath of the ritual, the chamber fell into a profound, almost sacred silence. The once crackling surge of magical energy had dissipated into a delicate haze, leaving behind a tangible stillness that pressed upon Brier like a bittersweet lullaby. As the full moon's silver light bathed the room, she could feel the extraordinary power that had coursed through her veins slowly ebbing away, leaving behind not the wild, untamed force that had defined her, but an aching emptiness in its stead. Her eyes, once alight with the fierce glow of supernatural magic, now shimmered with the soft, reflective sheen of quiet sorrow. Brier reached out a trembling hand, as if to touch the fading remnants of her former self. The vibrant energy that had once crackled with every incantation was gone, replaced by a stillness that was both relieving and devastating. Her werewolf powers, the very essence that had made her unique and powerful, had gradually faded, leaving her heart heavy with loss. And yet, there was a subtle relief, a promise of freedom from the ancient curse that had bound her for so long. The cool air of the chamber whispered against her skin, mingling with the lingering scent of herbs and incense that still clung to the room. Each flickering candle on the stone altar now cast elongated shadows that danced slowly across the walls, their gentle motion a reminder of the moments that had just passed. The physical space, once charged with the raw energy of magic, now felt like a quiet sanctuary where time itself seemed to slow down, allowing every detail of the ritual's aftermath to settle in. Brier stood silently, absorbing the full weight of what had been achieved. The curse, that relentless, oppressive force, was broken at last. Yet the victory was laced with sorrow. The cost had been immense. As her powers receded, she could feel a profound emptiness growing within her, a void where the wild magic had once surged. It was as if she had been stripped bare, left with nothing but the soft, vulnerable human essence beneath. The realization struck her deeply. The gift of freedom from the curse came with the painful sacrifice of her supernatural nature. In that long, quiet moment, her mind replayed memories of the ritual, the surge of power as ancient words echoed. In the chamber, the ethereal presence of her great-grandmother CIA guiding her, and the breathtaking climax when the curse began to unravel like a fragile thread. Now, with the magic quieted and her powers fading, the air around her seemed to hum with a mournful resonance, as if the very walls wept for the loss of what once was. Emotions swirled within her, a tumultuous blend of relief and grief, hope and melancholy. Part of her rejoiced in the liberation of her loved ones, knowing that Stephen and Kai were finally free from the curse's insidious grip. But another part of her wept for the wild part of her soul, the part that had given her strength, passion, and an indomitable spirit. In that sacred aftermath, Brier realized that what she had gained was freedom, but what she had lost was an intrinsic part of her identity, a power that had been both a blessing and a curse. The physical consequences of the ritual were undeniable. The grimoire lay open on the altar, its pages now glowing faintly with residual energy, while the carefully arranged herbs and stones bore the subtle marks of magical discharge. The candle's flames flickered softly, as if in quiet acknowledgement of the great change that had just occurred. Every element in the room spoke of transformation, a metamorphosis that had rewritten the rules of her existence. Yet, amid the sensory details of the transformed space, Brier's thoughts turned inward. A soft, introspective monologue began to unfold in her mind, a meditation on the nature of sacrifice and the price of freedom. "I have broken the chains that have haunted my family for generations," she thought, her inner voice resonating with both pride and despair. "But at what cost? I have lost the wild power that defined me, the fierce, untamed spirit that once roared under the full moon." The question lingered, unanswerable yet impossible to ignore. It was a poignant moment of self-reflection, a turning point where the finality of her choice mingled with the tender hope of a new beginning. As the night waned and the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, Brier felt the inevitable pull of change. The magic that had so fiercely defined her was now but a memory, leaving her to confront a new reality. a future where the curse no longer ruled, but where the cost of liberation was etched deep into her soul. The relief of breaking the curse was palpable, yet the sorrow of what she had sacrificed remained like a soft, persistent ache. In that quiet, transformative dawn, Brier understood that she now stood at the threshold of a new chapter. The aftermath of the ritual was not merely an ending. It was the beginning of a long, uncertain journey. A journey to rediscover herself, to reconcile the parts of her heart that had loved so deeply, and to navigate a world forever changed by the breaking of an ancient, powerful curse. Under the cloak of midnight, when the fortress lay shrouded in a heavy, almost mournful silence, Brier's heart pounded with a storm of conflicting emotions. The ritual's aftermath had left her both free from the ancient curse and irreversibly changed, a paradox that weighed on her like an unyielding burden. In that fragile hour, as the last vestiges of magic slowly faded into the darkness, she knew that staying would only endanger those she had come to love. The thought of her family, the pack that had become her refuge, filled her with both warmth and an aching guilt. How could she, who had fought so hard to break the curse, now risk their future by remaining? Her mind churned with an internal dialogue, each thought a mingling of sorrow, determination, and the cold clarity of a final decision. "I must leave," she whispered to the silent room, her voice trembling like the fluttering candle flames. "It is the only way to protect them from the lingering echoes of this curse." Every memory of shared laughter in the great hall, every gentle touch from Stephen, and every quiet glance from Kai, now wove together with the sting of loss. Brier could not bear the possibility of her presence inadvertently reigniting old wounds, of her cursed nature somehow seeping into the hearts of those who had become her family. Clad in a simple, dark cloak that concealed her vulnerable form, Brier moved silently through the dim corridors of the fortress. Each step was deliberate, laden with the weight of her impending departure. As she passed the familiar rooms where her laughter and tears had once mingled with her packs, she felt the bittersweet pull of memories. In every shadow cast by the ancient stone walls, she saw faces etched in both hope and despair. The smiles that once offered solace, and the silent promises of protection that now seemed tragically distant. At a narrow, hidden door near the back of the fortress, she paused for a moment, pressing her hand against the cool wood as if trying to commit every detail to memory. "I'm leaving not because I love you less, but because I love you too much," she murmured softly, her words almost carried away by the still night air. The guilt was palpable, a constant companion whispering of sacrifices made and losses endured. Yet beneath that guilt, a resolute determination had taken root, a determination to safeguard the ones she cherished, even if it meant sacrificing her own future. Stepping away from the door, Brier's eyes darted around the corridor, ensuring that no one would see her departure. The corridors, usually echoing with the vibrant life of the fortress, now stood eerily silent, the only sound the quiet hum of her resolute footsteps. Outside, the cool night air embraced her as she slipped through a side gate, leaving behind the very walls that had been both her sanctuary and her prison. The dark path ahead was uncertain, a route lined with the shadows of unspoken farewells and the distant promise of a new beginning. Every step away from the fortress felt like a final goodbye, a farewell to the familiar warmth of camaraderie, to the shared dreams and whispered hopes of a tightly knit family. Yet, as the ancient structure receded into the distance, the pain of separation mingled with a fierce resolve. Brier could almost hear the voices of her pack echoing in her memory, their love a beacon that urged her onward, even as it tore her apart inside. Under the star-studded sky, Brier paused at the edge of a moonlit clearing. Here, the cool, crisp air carried the faint scent of dew and distant pine, a stark contrast to the heavy, earthy aroma of the fortress. In the solitude of the open night, She allowed herself one final moment of introspection. I must do this, she thought, eyes glistening with unshed tears. To break free from the curse, to protect them all, I must be strong, even if it means facing a future without the very essence that has defined me. Her resolve was steeled by the memories of the ritual, the haunting words of CIA, and the quiet, steadfast support of those who had shown her love unconditionally. With a final, lingering glance at the direction of the fortress, a place where the echoes of her past would forever remain, Brier turned toward the unknown. Every step forward was a step into uncertainty, a leap of faith born out of desperate necessity and boundless love. As she navigated the shadowed path, the only trace of her presence was the soft imprint of her footsteps and the quiet echo of her whispered farewells. Each gentle murmur carried the weight of a promise to return, if the winds of fate allowed, and to continue fighting the curse that had defined her destiny. In that final, heart-wrenching moment of departure, Brier understood that leaving was not the end, but the beginning of a profound, transformative journey, a journey that would test her resolve, her love, and the very core of who she was meant to become. At the main gate of the fortress, beneath the stark light of a waning full moon, Brier's quiet departure was abruptly halted by the sudden arrival of her pack. The heavy oak door creaked open, and figures emerged from the shadows like specters of a shared destiny. In that charged moment, the night itself seemed to hold its breath. Before her stood Stephen and Kai, their expressions a tumultuous mix of raw emotion, love, anger, heartbreak, all converging in a climactic confrontation. Brier, wait. Stephen's voice boomed across the clearing, laden with both desperation and authority. His eyes, dark and pleading, searched hers with a fervor that spoke of an unwavering loyalty. You can't leave us like this. He faltered momentarily, pain flickering across his features before he steadied himself. I need you here. You are the heart of our pack, the one who heals our wounds. Please don't go. Kai's voice, softer yet no less intense, cut through the tension. Brier, I beg of you, stay. I know you think leaving will protect everyone, but you're our strength. I cannot bear the thought of losing you. His tone, a blend of anger and sorrow, resonated with a deep, unspoken yearning. Kai's eyes glistened with tears that mirrored his inner torment, as if each drop carried the weight of countless regrets and unfulfilled promises. Caught between the two, Brier's heart pounded in her chest like a relentless drum. Every step she had taken away from the fortress felt now like a betrayal, a choice that could splinter the fragile bonds of the family she had come to love. She took a step back, her voice barely a whisper at first. I thought I was doing what was best. I never meant to hurt you either. Her words trembled with a mixture of regret and anguish, as if she could feel the shards of her fractured resolve piercing her soul. Stephen advanced, his gaze burning with a mixture of determination and vulnerability. Brier, look at me, he demanded, his tone softening slightly as he reached out, gently grasping her hand. I love you more than words can say. I know the curse, the pain, the choices have been unbearable. But staying here, with us, might be the only way to truly heal. His eyes pleaded for understanding, each syllable infused with raw sincerity and the desperate hope of a man who had lost too much already. Kai, not willing to be overshadowed by Stephen's impassioned plea, stepped forward, his voice cracking with emotion. You think this is about control or obligation? It's about love. The kind of love that isn't bound by logic or duty. I see you, Brier, not just as a healer, but as the very soul that mends our broken hearts. I cannot imagine a future without you, even if it means facing the consequences of everything we have endured. His words, laced with both tenderness and a simmering intensity, reverberated in the cool night air. The pack, a silent witness to this charged standoff, watched with bated breath as the two men's voices intertwined. In a crescendo of passionate declarations, their collective presence added an unspoken pressure, a reminder that every choice made here would ripple through the lives of all who had once believed in a cursed yet unbreakable bond. Brier's eyes flickered between Stephen and Kai, her internal struggle laid bare. The desperation in their voices, the tearful hope mingled with quiet fury, and the palpable tension in the air forced her to confront the full consequences of her decision. She began, her voice breaking as she tried to find the words that could convey the labyrinth of emotions raging within her. I love you both. Every part of me does. But every step away feels like I'm tearing my heart apart, as if I'm abandoning you to the very fate I'm trying to escape. Stephen's grip tightened, his face etched with pain and determination. We're not asking you to choose one over the other, Brier. We're asking you to stay, to fight with us against the curse that has haunted us all for so long. Your presence, your healing, is what gives us hope. Without you, we lose not only our strength, but our very reason to believe that things can change. Kai's eyes shimmered with a bittersweet blend of desire and sorrow as he added, You're the one who sees the truth in all of us, the one who can mend the past and shape our future. I can't bear to see you walk away, knowing that every moment without you is a moment lost in this endless torment. His voice was raw, a quiet roar of the heart that demanded her reconsideration, even as it pierced her with its intensity. In that charged, climactic moment at the gate, Brier felt the weight of every unspoken promise, every tear shed in secret. The tension between love and duty, between the hope for a healed future and the burden of an ancient curse, culminated in a silence that was almost unbearable. Her heart throbbed in her chest, each beat echoing the desperate love and piercing pain of those around her. With the moon casting its ghostly glow over the assembly, the final confrontation at the gate became a crucible, a moment where every word, every gesture, and every tear would determine the fate of a family bound by both love and an unyielding curse. As the night deepened, the standoff lingered like a fragile equilibrium, poised on the edge of irrevocable change, leaving everyone, Brier, Stephen, Kai, and the entire pack, entangled in the raw, palpable tension of an impending final decision. Under a sky painted with the soft hues of dawn, the fortress bore witness to a gathering that felt both timeless and ephemeral, a symbolic reunion, where love, loss, and hope intertwined in a tapestry of raw emotion. In the grand hall, illuminated by the gentle radiance of flickering candles and the early light of a new day, Brier stood at the center, surrounded by the faces of those who had become her chosen family. Today was not a conventional wedding, but a sacred ceremony of unity, a promise to forge a shared future despite the lingering shadow of the ancient curse. The air was thick with bittersweet anticipation as Stephen and Kai stood on either side of Brier, their eyes reflecting a mix of determination and vulnerability. Their expressions were soft and resolute, as if they had silently agreed to embrace a destiny where rivalry gave way to collective healing. In that moment, Brier felt the weight of years of heartache and sacrifice lighten, replaced by the tender, exhilarating promise of togetherness. A gentle murmur spread through the gathered pack, a chorus of voices that, despite past grievances and untold sorrows, now celebrated the possibility of renewal. The elder, whose wisdom had guided them through centuries of torment, stepped forward and recited a blessing in a low, reverent tone. May the wounds of the past heal in the light of this new beginning, and may the love that binds you forge a future where the curse no longer casts its long shadow upon our hearts. As the words echoed softly, Brier took a deep breath and closed her eyes, allowing the blessings to seep into her soul. In her heart, she carried the memories of a painful past, the betrayals, the endless nights of solitude, and the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. Yet now, with both Stephen and Kai at her side, she felt an overwhelming surge of hope. The sacrifices, though bitter, had paved the way for this fragile unity, a unity that promised healing, even if the remnants of the curse still whispered in the corners of their lives. The ceremony was simple, yet profoundly moving. Instead of a traditional exchange of vows, Brier and her beloveds shared a quiet, heartfelt conversation, a series of promises spoken in hushed tones, punctuated by tender touches and lingering gazes. "I choose you both," Brier declared, softly, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion. "I choose the love that has sustained me through my darkest hours, the love that promises unity over division, hope over despair." Her words, filled with both determination and sorrow, hung in the air like an unbreakable vow. Stephen stepped forward, his hand finding hers, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I promise to protect you, to cherish you, and to stand by you, even in the face of the curse that once tore us apart," he said, his voice firm yet tender. Kai, his gaze equally intense, added, "I vow to honor the love we share, to bridge the divides of the past with every heartbeat, and to walk with you into the uncertain future, side by side." Their voices merged into a single harmonious pledge, a testament to the strength of their bond and a subtle defiance of the fate that had long haunted them. As the final words of their vows faded into the hushed silence, the assembled pack erupted in a soft, collective murmur of approval, a promise of solidarity and shared hope. The celebration that followed was not one of exuberant joy alone, but of a reflective, almost sacred recognition that a new chapter had begun. Brier, Stephen, and Kai, though forever marked by the curse, had chosen to embrace love's unpredictable power, to transform their pain into a beacon of possibility. Yet, as the festivities carried on into the early hours of a hopeful morning, a lingering melancholy remained, a reminder that the curse's shadow might still stretch across their lives, and that the road ahead would not be free of challenges. In our quiet moments, as Brier gazed into the eyes of the men who loved her, she could see the silent questions. Would the sacrifices they had made be enough to keep the darkness at bay? Could love, however tender and determined, truly mend the scars of a cursed lineage? In the soft murmur of laughter and whispered blessings, Brier found a bittersweet solace. The future was uncertain, the path ahead shrouded in both promise and peril. Yet in choosing to unite their hearts and spirits, they had set forth on a journey where every step was a defiant stand against the forces of despair, a journey where the power of love and healing might at last overcome the ancient curse. The celebration slowly faded into the gentle glow of a new day. The trio shared a quiet, lingering embrace, a moment suspended between heartache and hope. Their love, though scarred by the past, now shone with the fragile light of possibility, inviting all who witnessed it to believe in the transformative power of unity. And with that, a new beginning was born, one that promised to heal the wounds of yesterday, even as it left an open, poignant question in the hearts of those who dared to dream of a future unbound by old, relentless curses.